33 pounds weight loss. And that is deceptive. It's not true.
Okay, John, thank you so much for joining us this morning. John Kuckelman of Novo Nordisk. And again, we are indeed out to Eli Lilly. We invite them on the show as well to respond to these claims, and we await any response, and we will bring you it as soon as we get it. Coming up on the show, Northrop Grumman hikes its outlook with its order backlog at a record high. Shares, though, falling more than 4%. That's coming up next. This is Bloomberg Open Interest.
Larger, much more powerful, and as you said in your intro in Donbass, this is quite evident that it's the Russians that are making ground. They're having the favorable casualty ratios. So NATO has also been pushing for more deep strike into Russia's rear, that is energy, economic targets, as well as military, to weaken Russia. So I think that this is why the Russians see this essentially, if they're not able to absorb all the pain of the NATO's escalation, then they're going to have to find a way of escalating in a big way. So I think the first step is escalating directly against Ukraine. If that doesn't take it, I would expect a retaliation against NATO directly.
Bob, one of the things Glenn said there, you sort of prove the point, do you not? I mean, drone companies financed by the West, you are involved, you're a former British MP, you were an author on the war in Ukraine, but you're also involved with a Ukrainian-British company that produces drones, completely proving his point.
I'm not quite sure what point Glenn was making, because he seemed to imply that this was a NATO attack on Russia with Ukraine as a proxy, and I think there's probably 0% of the Ukrainian population that would accept that argument, and a very small portion of an external population that would accept that. Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is defending itself. Ukraine has Western allies who support Ukraine's right to exist and not to be destroyed by Putin's dictatorship. So that's the starting point. The idea that sort of NATO, that Russia is retaliating against Ukraine first, and then it'll come to NATO afterwards because it's NATO's war against Russia, it is simply a fiction and a misrepresentation of what is happening.
Okay,
now when it comes to
Bob, if I don't mind me interrupting you a second, we'll come back to drones later on, but what we've seen repeatedly, I think at least 7 times this month, is Putin again exploiting the vulnerability that he's seen since the very beginning of the war, which is he can bombard Kyiv with missiles, and there's very little Kyiv can do to stop it. Is that not right?
Yeah, on that, I mean, Russia has 3 strategic aims. Certainly on the when it comes to the operational tactics of the war, Russia has 3 aims, and they have not changed. To make grinding progress on the battlefield, and actually they're not winning in Donbass, and their casualty rates are extraordinary. And when you use 100,000 lives to take a small town the size of Pokrovsk, that may be tactical victory in military terms, but it's.
Hello, my name is DrPaulCottrell. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Please help support the work that I do by donating. You can donate on my website. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. You could be also a paid member to my Patreon channel or Substack. That way, you're helping support the content. All this content is for free. I'm going to tell you how to make some money in the market. We're going to go over the news and tell you my opinion about it, especially in how it affects the market, and how to improve your health. A lot of people don't know how to actually improve their health. You don't have to be dependent on pharmacopoeia. Most of the diseases that Americans have are self-induced, and you can reverse and slow down the aging process. So with that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer. Let's just talk about one great product that is really important for you. If you're 40 years of age or older, Myotrol. This will help build muscle and maintain muscle, and also help with the health of your mitochondria, so you have the energy to maintain that muscle. If you're 40 years of age or older, you can't build muscle as easily as when you were younger. Why? Because your gene expression has changed with age. This will help with the gene expression to build muscle and maintain muscle. It has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with that gene expression to build muscle and to maintain it. So if you want to reduce atrophy and build muscle, take Myotrol. Now, if you're an athlete, younger or older, you will benefit in your sport by taking Myotrol. Make sure you do some resistance training a few times a week, and you will be building muscle. So please go to my store and get the Myotrol. This stacks really well with the Gladiator Barley too. Gladiator Barley helps to build muscle. We'll talk about that later. But please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Okay, so the markets are open. They've been open for about 30 minutes, and the S&P 500 is trading at 7,479 approximately. VIX is trading at 1776. Euro is trading at 114, and the Japanese yen has been creeping up relative to the dollar. The Japanese yen has been weakening just a little bit at 162.85. And Bitcoin is trading at 66,875. It's going up a little bit. Oil is trading at 84.38, and natural gas is trading at 2.862. I am shorting natural gas. I've been looking at Gush, and I've been paying attention to the SSG for the semiconductor industry, because I think there's going to be a big sell-off in the semiconductor industry when earnings come out this week with some of the tech companies talking about CapEx expenditures, how they report their earnings, if they're slightly above estimates, and if CapEx spending starts to go down, boom, there's going to be a major sell-off in semiconductors. So take a look at SSG. That is an ETF that helps to short the semiconductor industry. So right now, I've been, more focused on shorting gas, natural gas, and been early in the session and pre-market, I've been going long oil and then closing the position. Made a little bit of money that way. I'm a little concerned oil going above 84.50. I think it's going to run out of steam, and then it's going to start drifting back down to maybe 83, maybe 82.80, and then start drifting back up. But it all depends on the news that happens during the trading session, especially regarding the Middle East. So we have to watch for that. So with that, let's take a look at what is going on in the news. This is about Mindani and what's happening in New York.
I'm surprised that wealthy Americans are ditching their New York residences. The guy who thought a pied-à-terre tax was a good idea, maybe he should have taken a few more economics classes at Bowdoin College, because when asked by the New York Times how he defines working class, well, he needed to buy a vowel.
I think if you have to work to pay your bills, I think that is one definition of being a part of the working class.
So that's everyone with a W-2? Is that kind of...
1099 too. I think I'm less interested.
So someone making $250,000 a year is working class?
I mean, I haven't sat at home and asked myself where it starts and stops.
We didn't ask you to sit at home. We asked you to know something. But that's what happens to your brain when you live life on TikTok and major in Africana studies. Even the New York Times couldn't avoid calling him out on his verbal diarrhea.
Politically, if you're saying everyone is the working class or anyone that gets a salary is the working class, yes, that opens up your tent. But practically speaking, we are divided by income, and especially if you want to tax people, where you draw those lines matters.
I've drawn it at about $1 million a year.
Okay. So anyone under $1 million a year in income is working class?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying in terms of the practicality when it comes to fiscal policy.
He does that goofy laugh thing. You know, Kamala cackles, and he does that weird smiling. It's so annoying. The socialist experiment is already crumbling, and that is not funny. Because instead of empowering the people, his policies have empowered criminals.
I don't feel safe in the subway generally. They say there's no crime, but I don't see that. It doesn't seem like it's such a big priority for him.
There's times at night that I don't feel safe walking back to my friend's apartment alone if I'm alone.
I mean, there's been a lot of stabbings. Like a random man was stabbed on the subway, and there was like no motive or anything. So that was a little scary.
The subway is not that safe. What kind of homeless?
Subways are terrible in New York. Not only are they dirty, but they're extremely unsafe. Just recently, within the last maybe 48 hours, there was a woman, an elderly woman, that was pushed onto the tracks. Thank God she survived. Then they caught the perpetrator. Yesterday, there was a individual that poured gasoline on the steps in front of a federal building in New York, lit it on fire, and threw fireworks into the fire. Now they caught him right away. And this individual was a veteran. He looked Hispanic from the pictures that I saw in the media. And he seemed to be protesting about ICE. So it was related to all the illegal immigration issue. New York is starting to fail. Now the question is, are we going to push back? Are we going to allow democratic socialists to take over? Are we going to allow for people to push communism and socialism, communist light? You know, socialism is just communist light. Are we going to allow for our society to erode and we lose our constitutional freedoms? We are anchored with the Enlightenment. Life, liberty, and property. We have a constitutional republic that protects your property rights. It doesn't sound like Madani wants to protect your property rights. This is the problem with DSA. Now, DSA is tapping into the anger that's happening in society. And that anger is on the left and on the right, the ultra-left and the ultra-right. They feel as though the system is against them. They feel as though they're working hard and they're not getting ahead. Some people give up. Some people feel as though it should be just handed to them. You know, there's many different categories. I don't want to broad brush and say that the whole ultra left or ultra right is monolithic. But there are individuals, especially in the ultra left, that are aligned with postmodernism. They are not aligned with the Enlightenment. And because of that, they don't believe in God, country, and family. And if you don't believe in those three pillars, you don't have a strong society. It's that simple. It's that simple. Now, there's some common themes with these democratic socialists. They seem to love Karl Marx. They seem to love communism. They feel as though government should just hand you everything. Well, how's that going to be productive? We get taxed too much. There's too much waste by the government. Government needs to shrink, not expand. If people had more money in their pocket because of less taxes, they would make the decision on how they spend their money. It's that simple. So what's going to happen is more inflation, you're going to start hearing in the news that the Federal Reserve is going to be more and more worried about inflation. Now, what did Jamie Dimon say just recently? He said he would not buy bonds. Now, this is a banker, and banks anchor their risk to bonds because there is quote less risk with them. But he said no. Why? Because now we're in a new historical epoch that is reminiscent of what happened in the 70s. And with the 70s, yields started going up. The whole yield curve started going up. That means the 10-year bond's going to go to 5. That means the 30-year bond's going to 6. That means your mortgage is going to go higher. That means your credit card payments are going to be higher. Interest is going to be higher. Inflation is going to be higher. And the Federal Reserve is going to have to raise rates, not lower rates. But everyone thinks that freebies. But there is a cost for that in the long run. And that cost can be captured with inflation. People need to push back, but I understand why the anger's there. I understand why people are saying they want something different, but they're not smart enough to realize what they should pick. The Republican Party has great ideas, but they're not organized and can't pass anything. So when you do give them the legislative power and the executive branch, you don't get much. The Democrats, they're the opposite. They have bad ideas, but they're organized to the point where they can push legislation through if they are in power. So you have organizational ineptitude with the Republican Party. And with the Democrat Party, you have ideas that are inflationary and that make society less productive. So because both sides of the aisle aren't really helping the middle class, people get angry. And they always go to the opposite. Look at what happened during Lehman. People were tired of the Republican Party and George Bush Jr. What did they do? They flocked to someone totally different. Barack Obama and the Democratic Party. And we're still feeling the effects of the inflation that was created through quantitative easing. Well, Dr. Paul Cottrell, how could that be? That happened in 2008. No, it's happening. The inflation that we feel today, parts of it is an echo from Lehman. That's Barack Obama. Well, Barack Obama didn't cause Lehman crash. Well, that's the other problem. There was too much greed and not enough bank supervising that should have been taking place at the Federal Reserve because they focus on stress in the banking system. And their stress tests before Lehman failed because they weren't watching the ball. They weren't paying attention. Now that was before all this social media and TikTok and all this. Can you imagine how society's not paying attention now? The attention span is lower. So you had Lehman where it happened because of greed and the Federal Reserve not paying attention to the systemic risks that was starting to emerge. But that was before the TikTok movement and people doom scrolling. So you had people that weren't retarded yet, but yet not paying attention. Now you have people that are not paying attention and retarded because of social media. So it's going to get worse here. There's going to be something that emerges that people aren't paying attention to because of this dumbing of our society. Now, if you don't believe me, there are videos out there on YouTube that show functional MRI scans of children using iPhones and iPads. and how it affects their brain, and they're not as smart. They're literally, the IQs go down. They have mapped it. They know exactly what is happening. But the thing is it's happening to adults too. And what happens is that the myelin sheath of the axon of the neuron starts to degrade. This is in kids, while their brain is starting to connect, while their brain is starting to prune and connect to the world that they are experiencing. And that myelin sheath starts to degrade, and therefore the communication between neurons starts to slow down. Literally, kids today using iPhones and iPads have slower brains, literally. They've mapped this out. But it's happening also to adults. Now, when your myelin sheath starts to go bad, and you're not sending those signals at the proper speed, the dendritic connections start to recede. So we have to first stop the problem, and that is the overexposures to social media, the overexposure of the doom scrolling, the overexposure of all these devices for kids and for adults. And start doing exercises, mental exercise, learning things, reading, being part of nature, doing kinematics where you're like doing a sport outside. We evolved in nature. So if you're building something in nature, or you're playing a sport, or you're running in a field, or you're hunting or fishing, you're activating that prime brain. You're activating your brain the way it was developed, the way it emerged in nature. And you'll strengthen yourself. Ted Nugent has a song out there, and he has a verse. It's Fred Bear, but the name of the song, but there's a verse saying, cleanse the soul. When you hunt, cleanse the soul. That cleanse of the soul is actually being in nature, even if you don't hunt, but being in nature, and your body is going to revert back to a healthy level. Because we evolved in that. This is not natural, this high-tech world that we're living in, and doom scrolling. And it puts you in a state where it's eroding your neurons. It's bad, super bad, especially for kids, but also for adults. And this is the reason why I'm sure that you look around your coworkers and you go, damn, they're getting dumb. What's wrong with them? Is it just aging? So it goes to another step here. The aging process of the brain is going to get worse. It's going to speed up because of this, because of the myelin sheath is starting to erode. This is a big problem. But was it worth it? Was it worth it? Buy these damn devices for $1,000 or more and make Tim Cook a billionaire? Was it worth it? Now your kids are retarded. You're becoming retarded too. Was it worth it? That's what's happening in society. Now, if you don't believe me, just go on YouTube. There is medical research that has been published, and news organizations, local news organizations, have been diving into this very subject matter. Now, the solution is detox from it and do things that are going to be more mind and body, meaning a sport or music, playing an instrument or building something. And I'm not talking coding. I'm talking like building a tree house or working on a car or working in the yard or building a garden or build something. And when you do that, you will get healthier. All right, let's continue.
Crazy people running around. The police down there, but what? They're in one car, big deal. What about the rest of the cars?
Well, here to weigh in is Lisa Booth, Fox News contributor, Ned Ryan, American Majority CEO and executive producer of The Thread of Liberty. Lisa, I know you've lived in New York on and off for years. How can he fight for the working class? First of all, his policies are terrible, but he really can't even define it. It's like a TikTok moment, and none of it actually adds up, even in his own mind, to the extent that exists.
Well, Laura, Mamdani is like the class or child running for student body president, and he promises all these free things, free ice cream, free candy, no homework, and then it runs into the buzzsaw of reality that is actual governing, that's budgets of having to get things done. But he can't define the working class, Laura, because the Democrat Socialists of America is not about the working class. That's just a Trojan horse for the DSA to seize power within the Democrat Party, and then also America. You can look at the DSA's own survey from 2021. 80% have degrees. Most are white-collar workers. Only 4% have blue-collar jobs. And then you look at the RIP platform, that's what really tells the story about what they want to do. Well, what they want to do is destroy America by stealing from us the things that we have earned, by abolishing private property, destroying the things that keep us safe, like the police or prisons, or wanting open borders. And then lastly, what they do is want to destroy the institutions that keeps checks on power, like packing the Supreme Court, getting rid of the Senate, and getting rid of the Electoral College.
And then not even the Democrats, the local congressmen, they're fed up with the conditions on the streets. Watch this.
The streets are littered with hundreds of syringes. The pedestrian plaza is full of loitering and drug trafficking and homeless encampments.
This is in the Bronx. So it's the red district, and there's a bunch of needles all over the place. There's prostitution. That's New York for you now. That's New York for you.
Okay, and then one of these encampments is about 12 city blocks. It's a tent city right outside of the beautiful Intrepid Museum, and they're paying for syringes. That's a new program in New York, according to the, I guess that's in the New York Post. Fox News actually did the piece.
Well, I will say this, you bought the ticket, enjoy the ride. I mean, the Democrat Party's been embracing these socialists for years. Brought them in, wanted to use the energy to gain political power, and now they realize they've got a massive problem. First of all, the far left is never going to be content with not having full power inside the Democrat Party. So moderates and the establishment are starting to realize we're next on their list. They're going to take us out as well. They welcome the Viper into their embrace, and the Viper is going to take them out. And the other thing, too, is they realize this is not going to be a winning campaign promises for the midterms and beyond. It might work in places like New York and Seattle and LA, but you get into the rest of the country, you get into the independents, this message does not play. So I think they're realizing we have boxed ourselves into a corner and actually put ourselves into tremendous trouble politically. And by that, I mean the Democrat establishment.
Lisa, we sent out one of the Angle producers, just ask people how it was going so far. Watch this response.
So how are things going under Mamdani?
Fantastic.
Yeah. So what are some of the promises that he's made that he's delivered on?
Thus far I can't point to super specifics, but I think people are excited. I think he's going to bring in like an Obama-like energy to.
Hey, this guy is saying that he's bringing an Obama energy to the city, but he can't pinpoint what did he actually deliver as a promise. See, I don't understand what this guy looks educated. He looks like he went to college. He's white. This is another thing that's crazy. Is a big part of the Democratic Socialist Party is being propped up by educated whites. Why? What the hell's wrong with this? This guy's a retard. Maybe he's on TikTok all the time.
So, Lisa, people are supposedly excited because of the Obama-like energy. I mean, I'm in New York a lot. I smell a lot of weed. I smell that. That's about all I'm noticing.
You know, Laura, I had to Google, can you get contact high from being outside one time walking into work? Because
It's so bad.
I was
So
afraid
bad,
that
it's
I would get
disgusting.
high from being outside. You know, it's all about the vibes, Laura. It's not about reality. You know, he made all these campaign promises. They're not coming to fruition. What concerns me is even in Venezuela with Hugo Chavez, he was democratically elected. And then it was once he got in that he then just started to destroy things from the inside. So, and then also, even if it's only a handful of these socialists going to Washington, D.C., they can still have a net effect of moving the party further to the left.
Yeah, Lisa, Ned, final word, real quick.
No, I'll say this. I mean, it is the communist playbook everywhere to destroy from within and to try and usher in a new order. So I agree with Lisa. Like they can destroy the goal is for them to destroy the Democrat Party, but also destroy the country writ large. So I think we'd be wise to keep an eye on them and hopefully destroy them politically. That's right.
Take America down and rebuild the real socialist utopia where they have all the power and the people have the crumbs. That's how it always works out. Lisa, Ned, fantastic analysis. Thank you.
Be sure to like and
subscribe
for all the.
This is what I keep on saying about the DSA. DSA wants to destroy our constitutional freedoms. DSA doesn't believe in a constitutional republic. DSA doesn't believe in God, country, and family, nor the Enlightenment. And they sure as hell don't believe in capitalism. Now, it's not really about belief, because that's more of a theology. Let's just deal with facts. Which one is more productive for a society to move forward and to provide opportunities? Now, it doesn't mean it's perfect, but which one is better? Communism/socialism or capitalism? That experiment has already been played out, and it is obvious capitalism. What about the Enlightenment versus postmodernism, where anything goes? With anything goes, then you start having all these social problems. What about God, country, and family? When you have a society that is anchored on some sort of virtue or virtues versus anything goes, which society is going to be more productive? It's just about the data. If you're just being empirical about this, the DSA would not be the solution to the social ills of today. Now, I personally think that our policymakers, our representatives in government, are not listening to the people. They're listening to the lobbyists. And so we continue to have this problem. And one day, if this continues on, maybe in 50 years, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 100 years, there may be a Bastille moment that takes place in the United States. And if that does take place, we will no longer have our Constitution. We will no longer have a constitutional republic. So we have to nip this in the early stages. We have to push back. If we don't hold the line and maintain that foundation of the Enlightenment, we will lose. Unfortunately, I think there's not enough people out there that are actually thinking in this context. Everyone's getting really just self-centered. Everyone's not thinking about the bigger picture for the country. We just finished the 250th anniversary of the country. But we're in dangerous times right now. And if conservatives don't push back, if conservatives don't stop the advancement of DSA, we're going to have a problem.
People start believing that they're going to reduce, the expectation is there, the interest rates in the short term are going to come down with it. So in that respect, we like to go out, we want to take some duration. We really like the intermediate part of the market now, and it looks a little bit more favorable than it had looked just even over the last month.
What I'm going to play is the clip from Fox News talking about Iran's Iran launches new missile attacks against targets in the Middle East. This was published 40 minutes ago. This is with Trey Yingst, which is a great journalist, very good journalist about this subject matter. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the olive leaf extract. This is dual purpose. It's going to help boost up your immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. It brings down inflammation, helps you to control your lipid profile. When you do that, you're reducing plaque formation. And when you're bringing down inflammation, you're also boosting up that immune system. This is a great supplement. You should be taking it every day. And again, I believe that you should take dual purpose supplements so it lowers that cost. Because when you're taking something that's dual purpose, you're getting more bang for your buck. Magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc helps to boost up that immune system and helps with brain function. Remember what I was saying about the myelin sheath? And if it starts to erode, problems. Your neurons don't fire as well. And it has been proven that social media and overuse of devices like iPads and iPhones erode your myelin sheath. Better start paying attention and taking supplements that help with your brain function. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
That there is American firepower raining down on targets in Iran. U.S. forces conducting a 10th night of strikes, and we could be on the verge of the possibility of a major escalation. So good morning, everybody, live in New York on Tuesday. I'm Bill Hammer. Let's get it going right now.
Good morning. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. So Fox News confirmed President Trump is weighing a return to all-out war. Now, that could include attacks on nuclear sites as well as other targets the U.S. has avoided thus far.
So after a weekend that saw Iran kill 3 American service members, bringing the U.S. death toll in the fighting to 17 since the fighting began.
Meanwhile, we are awaiting a big hearing on Capitol Hill. So it's going to happen this afternoon, and it will feature testimony from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs Dan Kane. Lawmakers are expected to press them on the cost of the conflict and the strategy for winning it.
So Trey Yingst begins our coverage live in Tel Aviv, where we've got a lot to get to. Trey, we begin with you. Hello.
Bill, good morning. The Iranians are launching new attacks today. Earlier, sirens sounded across Bahrain amid incoming Iranian missile fire. The Jordanians say they shot down at least 5 incoming Iranian drones. This does follow another heavy night of U.S. strikes against Iran. It was the 10th consecutive night aimed at degrading Iran's ability to threaten vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command released a statement saying since early May, CENTCOM forces have helped facilitate the transit of approximately 900 commercial vessels and 450 million barrels of crude oil. They went on to say American forces remain postured and prepared to hold Iran accountable for unwarranted aggression towards civilian mariners seeking to freely and openly transit the strait. Early this morning, Iran attacked another tanker off the coast of Oman, forcing the crew to evacuate the vessel, according to maritime tracking groups. This does come after President Trump issued a new warning to the regime about killing American forces in the Middle East. The commander-in-chief said every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson was asked this week about the possibility of U.S. forces entering Iran. This was his response.
They will face the consequences. I believe there are people in those very areas, and they are not few in number, who are counting the moments until they can welcome them.
The comments come as the Wall Street Journal reports that Iran moved nuclear centrifuges into Pickaxe Mountain, an underground facility next to the Natanz nuclear site. The report, based on Israeli intelligence, is the latest to focus on this site. President Trump indicated last week he is considering new strikes against the facility. We're also tracking developments with the Houthis in Yemen, one of Iran's largest proxies in the region. The Houthis say they are implementing a naval blockade against Saudi Arabia. Bill?
Trey, thanks. Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv. Thank you. Dana?
Rich Goldberg, Senior Advisor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. I know you track this very closely. What's the most important thing you're watching today? Are we in an escalation trap?
Well, I don't think we're in an escalation trap. The question for escalation is what does Admiral Cooper at Central Command need
to complete the mission that he's on right now. It does not appear that we are launching operations to bring down the regime. We have economic tools that are underway to do that, a strangulation via the blockade and other measures. What we are seeing is Project Freedom underway 10 nights in. And so the question the president will have to Admiral Cooper is, where are you on the target set that you had developed for Project Freedom? That's to get shipping going through the Strait of Hormuz. Are we actually seeing shippers continue to move? Can we protect them? Have we degraded their ability? What else do you need to degrade that capability to hit the strait? I think that's the president's focus, because that's what we need for the oil markets, and that's what we would need to bag all the wins of Operation Epic Fury.
Rich, some of your colleagues for the Foundation Defense of Democracy writes this. Tehran has a wartime advantage over Washington because the ruling Iranian elite wants to fight and has been willing to endure far more pain than Donald Trump has. Do you agree with that, Rich?
Well, obviously, the regime does not have political constraints. They don't worry about the oil market. They don't worry about prices for their people. So in that respect, we are always handcuffed politically as a democracy compared to a ruthless dictatorship in Iran. Now, I would say it was probably a mistake to allow people like Ahmad Vahidi, the head of the IRGC, who's behind all of these attacks, to walk freely for the Supreme Leader's funeral. Hopefully the Mossad, others have tracked his movements, other senior IRGC leaders as well. And if they are the key impediments here to getting the Strait of Hormuz moving, you'd have to imagine that's also part of the escalation options that we have in front of us if we think we can get to them. But again, I think the core focus here is not to play the game of disinformation and mind games with this regime. This is about barrels moving through the Strait of Hormuz. It's about who controls the Strait of Hormuz. And then understand that if there are other big ticket items like Pickaxe Mountain that we can't leave alone, that we're not going to get dismantled via negotiation with a regime like this, we are going to have to find a military solution to ensure they don't ever get a nuclear weapon.
Let's dive in a little bit deeper on that. The Wall Street Journal is saying that Israel believes Iran moved nuclear centrifuges into Pickaxe Mountain. U.S. has reviewed the Israeli assessment, and President Trump has threatened to attack the site. Why is that different from the ones from Operation Midnight Hammer?
So I've talked about this site for a long time, as have some of my colleagues. This has been under construction for years now. The Biden administration did nothing about it. In fact, was part of the appeasement problem that let them continue construction of this facility. This is buried deep underground, near Natanz, deeper underground than Fordo was. It's supposed to be more hardened of a facility to withstand military strike. It was not hit last year during Midnight Hammer. It was not hit this year during Epic Fury, which has raised questions of whether or not it can be hit by air or sea. So the question now is, have we developed solutions, even if they're short-term Band-Aid solutions, to bury it, to deny access to it? Because this is definitely the nuclear breakout facility that Iran wants. They can't allow that facility to continue.
Rick's last question here. Apparently there are negotiations among players in the region that would negotiate a 10-day pause. I don't know how you feel about that or not. And then part of the negotiations would allow the Iranians to charge some sort of fee for ships that go through the islands that they control, but at the same time allow the international Omani route to continue. In a lot of ways, they're splitting the baby here, Rich. Do you see this as a possibility between Iran and the U.S. right now?
I would hope not. There should be no fees, no charges, no tolls going on. We should have freedom of navigation that is respected by all parties. That should be the bottom line. And it's nice that I guess the Qataris continue to talk to people and try to get deals done. I actually think it undermines the president at this moment. He should tell his partners to say, hey, cool your jets. Don't go taking deals. Don't go talking about deals with them. I'm sending a clear message here. We are going to continue this until our target set is complete, until they are no longer threatening the Strait of Hormuz. And I'm not going to be taking off ramps because my mission is going to be completed one way or the other. And if they get that message, you might actually get the diplomacy to work.
All right, Rich Goldberg, thanks for kicking us off this morning.
Thank you, Rich.
You bet.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox 1.
Oh, that's going to be good. All right, this is the Hill talking about midterm polls despite Trump socialists to blame. Failing Democrats in midterm polls. Let's just see what the Hill has to say. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Clarity Factor. This will help to improve your brain function. It's going to get rid of that brain fog. It's going to allow you to concentrate. And over time, you'll have better positive neuroplasticity. You're going to be able to think faster and have better memory. Take this every day. I highly recommend it. But you also have to get better sleep, eat properly, drink filtered water, and stay away from social media that's going to cause brain rot. Please go to my store, get the Clarity Factor. Very important. Vitamin C and magnesium. This is great for your immune system, brain function, also your skin. This stacks really well with the collagen that I have. You drink it with filtered water, and the vitamin C and the collagen will cross-link and improve your dermal layer. So please go to my store and get the vitamin C and magnesium and stack it with the collagen if you really want to improve your dermal layer. Use discount 5, you get $5 off. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos.
Here's the question Democrats are currently asking themselves. Why are things going better for them? Because, look, these upcoming midterms should be a wipeout for the Republicans, given the level of dissatisfaction with the current administration. Trump is not polling well, and Americans are upset with the economy, the lingering war with Iran, issues of corruption. They still trust Trump on immigration, but the baseline expectation should have been Dems would retake Congress handily, easily. And that's likely to be true for the House of Representatives, maybe, but in the Senate, things are different, and I'm not even just talking about the complete collapse in Maine as the Dem candidate, Graham Flander, had to exit the race over sexual assault allegations. Whoever wins the primary in Michigan will have a tough matchup against the Republican. James Talarico's having an equally tough time against Ken Paxton in Texas. What's the deal? Should this be easier for the Dems? Now on X, CNN columnist Ronald Brownstein points this out. Trump's job approval rating is currently worse than Clinton in '94, Bush in 2006, Obama in 2010, and Trump 1.0 in 2018. And in each of those midterm elections, the incumbent party got absolutely crushed by the opposition. So by some metrics, Trump should be in even worse shape, and Republicans should be worried about getting totally destroyed. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. The GOP is expected to narrowly lose the House and keep the Senate. If that happens, Dems will have some finger-pointing to do. But why wait? We can get started right now. Sarah Longwell, an ex-Republican strategist who went never Trump and co-founded the Bulwark, she thinks these surging socialists are turning swing voters away from the Democratic Party. They may be disappointed in Trump, but they don't want to empower the far left. She writes on X, at some point Dems are going to have to grapple with the reality that in the face of all of Trump and Republicans' manifest horribleness and incompetence, people aren't rushing toward the Democrats. You think the DSA stuff is helping, you've never talked to a swing voter. Similarly, Jamie Metzel, a former Bill Clinton staffer, writes on X, every Democrat and every American should recognize that the DSA represents a fundamental threat to our party and our country. This is not a story about a few idealists seeking to reduce healthcare costs. It's about a small group of radical extremists pursuing a strategy to take over the Democratic Party and ultimately our country in order to oppose an agenda that would devastate our economy and fundamentally dismantle our system of government. And they're both right about that. The Democratic Socialists of America represent a dangerous vision. They want to implement price controls and mass wealth confiscation. They want to empower the government to micromanage the economy pursuant to policies that have failed everywhere they are tried. No doubt the DSA's rise is alarming to many Americans, even many Americans who don't love Trump. They might vote for centrist, moderate, reasonable Dems, but they will not vote to turn our country over to people who revere China's Mao Zedong, a communist dictator whose policies resulted in the starvation of millions. You know who loves Mao, though? Hassan Piker. Just listen.
I got stopped by a cop who thought I was like making fun of Mao Zedong, which I never would and never will. Mao Zedong is is one of the great leaders of this world, okay? A man who changed the entire universe. There was a lot of excesses, let's be real, but the People's Republic of China would not exist without Mao Zedong.
The excesses were millions of people starving to death and becoming political prisoners. But anyway, Piker was a featured speaker at a meeting of the College Democrats just a few days ago. Make no mistake, the party is falling under the sway of the DSA. Oh, by the way, he was dressed like Mao when he was there. Very interesting. Despite the opposition of older, more centrist figures like Sarah Longwell and Jamie Metzl, the DSA is winning. Those people just haven't gone with the times. The Democratic establishment is utterly discredited among partisan Dems, and so their primary voters are now perfectly willing to hand the party over to Hassan Piker and his acolytes. They're cooked. Bad news for Dems, good news, I suppose, for the Trump administration, but more importantly, very bad news for the country, and that's what we should really care about, because we want there to be two reasonably competitive parties fighting for your vote. We certainly don't want one of those parties to suddenly be run by the revolutionary vanguard of the far left, to even dress the part.
I need a violin at this point.
I'm so sad.
Well, because you're just on a rampage. But let me just explain.
Summer.
No, I appreciate this conversation. I have a new analogy for you. I do want your thoughts on honesty. Democratic socialism is like basically having a potluck, right? And let's say that everyone's going to bring their own dish and responsible for what they eat, but then the Democratic Socialists organize and gather money to make one big dish that everybody also eats. And that's the main course, and then everyone else handles their side dishes with capitalism.
Imaginary Peter Pan food.
No.
That's all that's so.
Everyone else handles their side dish like all of us do with capitalism. We live in a mixed economy right now. So things like fire departments, things like police departments, other things that will be considered socialist. Some of them will be considered socialist. The things that we pay for, I mean, the public schools, these are all socialist. If we let you tell it, you rather everything be privatized. And look how that would go for the have and have-nots with kids.
Whoa. Now you're being
I'm not. I'm giving you an example of what Democratic socialists want more of. Like there's more public schools, they want more options. They want more.
They don't want more options, they want fewer options.
No, the
market gives you options, government gives you.
Will align. For example, the grocery store is not getting rid of the major grocery stores that are in or around New York City and the Bronx. They're adding another grocery store with lower cost options. You also still have Walmart and major big box retailers that are going to compete alongside a government-run grocery store. I mean, these are the things that they're arguing.
It's hard to compete sometimes against a government monopoly that even if it's a failing business can just confiscate more tax revenue to stay open.
We have several things in our mixed economy that we all pour into to help us all live better lives. Public schools is an easy example for that. So this argument that the Democratic Socialists need to be the boogeyman, I think, is misguided now.
But public schools have just created children that are not that smart. They can't even read. They can't even do mathematics. Our public schools are failing. Our government is failing. And we're supposed to spend more money for them to fail?
I wanted to say that, and let's talk about the Democrats.
We should boogeyman them a lot because they're boogeymen.
No, I'm just looking at Mamdani again as a prime example. Let's say he's the leader of DSA. What he's done in New York has not been anything worth a boogeyman title. I mean, he's literally opened up healthcare options for more people. He's opened up childcare options for more people. He's creating grocery stores that'll make things more affordable for folks.
He's also blew up the budget. It's not balanced. And what's going to happen is the tax base is going to leave, and it's going to get even worse. New York has to cut the social services. It needs to shut down programs, and spend more. Now, there are people in need, but the reality is that government intervention has caused a lot of these problems.
Get treated appropriately. You're naming.
We'll take that last one. That last one is a great example of socialism. I was lecturing Niall on this yesterday. When you fix the price of something artificially low, you're just subsidizing demand for it without creating more of that product. So like housing, you're saying we are the government. We are setting this price for this lower than what the market suggests it's worth. What that means is that people are disincentivized from providing housing, because they can't get They can't make the money off it that the market would actually provide. So they sell their house, they get rid of their housing, convert their housing to something else, convert it to a parking lot. You'll end up with less housing because you're not allowing people to make money on their property in the way the market would accord. That's called price fixing, and it fails, it disincentivizes more of that good. If you want more of those things, you want people to be able to make more money on it. The only way to like lastingly bring down the cost is to make more of that thing. Just fixing the cost artificially low doesn't make more of that thing. In fact, it leads to further shortages because people gobble it up.
So what we have is this a situation where we have a situation where
it doesn't work.
What President Trump is doing, which is MAGAism, is not working either.
Well, I didn't say
the polls that you're showing are showing that the American people think that it's failing. And so now you're sitting here and you're celebrating the fact that Democrats are also failing, but you pointed out that it's an L for everyone. It's not a great situation that Democrats have no plan and that the MAGA tactics that Trump is implementing are largely falling on deaf ears for the American public because they don't feel satisfied. And so here we are in a situation with poor choices all around. And so when you see people migrating toward Democratic socialists, they just want someone to stand for something. They want someone to lay out a plan. Democrats, traditional Democrats like Chuck Schumer and so forth, who are, who are just saying the same things over and over again, are frustrating voters that are in the Democratic Party. That's why they're looking elsewhere to say who else has a message and a plan. And if Democrats would open their party up and become more of a big tent, like I've been pushing towards, allow progressives' voices in there, allow a variety of voices in there, and become the party they claim to be, then I think they might have more of an agenda, since a lot of the DSA policies and the centrist Democrat policies align, like focusing on healthcare first and foremost, like protecting union workers, another key part. None of them really differ. The biggest issue.
We could shave out tens of billions of dollars in healthcare costs if people just took a better approach. And that approach is a holistic approach. Sleep better. Reduce your sugar content. Stop eating processed foods. Drink filtered water. Eat a balanced meal. Do some exercising. Resistance training and some cardio, some balancing exercises, some stretching. The three biggest diseases in the United States are mostly preventable. For most people, it's very rare where it's some sort of genetic issue or, some sort of thing that is totally out of their control. The big diseases that are driving healthcare costs are self-induced. Self-induced. So, you know what? Maybe we should have a different approach. You cut healthcare support and force people to actually have a better lifestyle. Force people that, you know what? You're not going to be able to afford healthcare. It's not going to be supported by the government. And, choose path one and it's going to cost a lot for you, or choose path two and it's not going to cost a lot for you. And you will have a better life. You'll have more vitality. Which path? Modern man. Which path do you want? The answer to these problems, government is saying, well, you just have to spend more money. Just give more health care to people. No. If you're really healthy, you don't need to see a physician. Now, why is that? Now, if you're healthy, you won't be on medication. Why is that? Amazing how that works. So if you listen to me and you do this holistic approach and you take the proper supplementation and you change your lifestyle, you won't have to see a doctor in most cases. Do your cancer screenings, have a cardiac evaluation once in a while. But if you're relatively healthy, eating properly, controlling your BMI, controlling your blood glucose levels, building more muscle mass, getting better sleep, these are all things that you don't need to pay a physician. These are things you could do at home, like now. You don't have to wait. You can do it right now. people will say, oh, I got cardiovascular disease. Well, most cardiovascular disease is self-induced. Well, I have pulmonary problems. Well, most pulmonary problems are self-induced. Well, an individual might be saying, oh, I have diabetes. Most diabetes in the United States is self-induced. Oh, they have cancer. Well, you know what? Most of the cancers in the United States are self-induced. Don't buy into this idea that there's so much genomic predisposition to a disease. Most of the problem is because of lifestyle. Now, that's not every disease, but the three big ones in the United States: heart disease, diabetes, cancer. Most of it is self-induced.
Foreign policy and how to manage our relationship with Israel, which we talk about, a lot of people have different feelings about. So it's not that much friction that should be created in the party over this topic.
They're modeling themselves after Mao. That's what they're doing.
You keep using Hassan Piker. He doesn't have a role in government.
Okay,
you keep using Hassan Piker, but he doesn't have a role in politics.
Well, neither does Steve Bannon or Elon Musk or
right. So when we're talking about policy,
Charlie Kirk back in the day, or it could be like
Steve Bannon was National Guard to the polls, but we're not seeing that happen because he doesn't have a role in government. That's the point. You have to point out people suggesting things versus people who actually have roles and the power to make things happen. Hassan Piker is not a relevant example of somebody who's a Democratic socialist because he has no role in government.
When people running for office, when Democrats, these DSA types run, the first thing they do is put themselves on a stage next to Hassan Piker to prove they have credibility to the kind of voters they're presenting. Look, Hassan Piker likes me.
Oh, you don't
That's
like
the kind of
people
power.
Are playing politics.
I don't like that they want to stand next to someone who looks like a third world dictator. And who dresses the part, by the way. Still ahead, a U.S. veteran in custody after allegedly lighting a fire outside of Manhattan.
The answer is not government. The answer is looking in the mirror and taking responsibility. It's all about God, country, and family. Taking responsibility. When you have a postmodern ethic, anything goes. Just have the government do it for you. Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, have a good time now and not care about the future. Postmodern, everything about most things about the postmodern era fails. Postmodern architecture, ugly. Postmodern art, ugly. The idea that with relativism, anything goes, that means that anyone's perspective is equally valued. That is insane. That is an insane philosophy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver lozenges. What these structural nanosilver lozenges will do is help to neutralize an allergen. It's great to take during the cold season. These secretions that you're creating will help to protect that oral pharynx and help to boost up that innate immune system. You can get it in Manuka honey, in orange splash. Again, perfect for the allergy season. If you're cleaning around the house, in the yard, doing gardening, cleaning the garage, cold season, doesn't matter. It will help to neutralize and help to protect that oral pharynx. And use them because of the fires that are happening in Canada. Many states in the United States are being affected with this particulate matter. So you can use the structural nanosilver lozenges to help mitigate any soreness. Please go to my store and get the ashwagandha root. Ashwagandha root will help to bring down cortisol levels and help to control your blood glucose levels. And when you do that, your immune system will improve and your cardiovascular system will improve. Just think about that. If you eat too much sugar, you're causing vascular problems. Not only that, you're increasing your chances of diabetes and causing a lot of inflammation and causing other problems. And when you have chronic inflammation and chronic levels of cortisol, your organ systems start to literally die. It's attacking it. The inflammation and the cortisol, the chronic cortisol, is attacking the tissues. What you want to do is bring that down. You want to bring down the blood glucose levels. You want to bring down the cortisol levels. You want to bring down the inflammation and boost up that immune system. And when you let your body heal, then you'll start to notice that you don't get common colds anymore or as frequently. You'll be able to have a more robust immune system. And then you'll start noticing you have more energy and then more vitality. It all kind of builds up. This is why I keep on saying most diseases in the United States, in terms of the numbers, in terms of absolute patient numbers, most disease, the very big diseases in the United States are self-induced. And you can stop it if you want to. If you want to look in the mirror and say, you're the source of the problem. And that's how you lower healthcare costs. Not asking government to keep on spending billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars that we don't have.
Burn up 3 basis points on the 10-year, 4.62%. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Intelligence.
And Paul Sweeney. Concern about rising prices spooking investors.
What does renewables investment look like in the U.S.?
More tariff talk coming out of this administration.
Breaking market headlines
And corporate news from across the globe.
The president wants to lower interest rates. He wants a rate cut cycle.
How do you broaden out the AI play?
Are people just looking for something to worry about when it comes to China? Bloomberg Intelligence.
With Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney.
On Bloomberg Radio, Originals, and the Bloomberg Business app.
Good Tuesday morning from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio in Midtown Manhattan. We are streaming live on YouTube as well. This is the second hour of Bloomberg Intelligence with Paul Sweeney, Scarlett Fu, and John Tucker. We've got a lot to get to this hour. We're going to check in with Tyler Kendall, our Bloomberg News Washington correspondent, on the latest out of the Middle East. David Welsh joins us from Detroit to give us the recap of GM's latest earnings. It boosted its 2026 outlook. John Tazi is our Bloomberg healthcare reporter. Novo Nordisk says it is suing Eli Lilly over weight loss ads. So John will give us the rundown on that. And Chris Palmieri, our Bloomberg News senior editor and team leader for our entertainment coverage, has the latest on a judge pausing a deal between Paramount and Warner Brothers, citing some serious issues, even though the feds, the DOJ, has waved that one along and blessed it. So yeah, I don't know how this all plays out.
They can do it though. I've seen some research where they can make things difficult.
Okay, well, the state's attorney general has made sure that they've raised their hand and said we're not going along with this M&A deal. So we'll get to all that shortly, but first let's kick things off with John Tucker and our Bloomberg Business Flash.
Yeah, risk on in the markets today. You have the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 247 points, 0.5% rise there. S&P 500 up 46 points, 74.89 at the index. The Nasdaq 100 is up 1.6%, 451 points higher. It's kind of enough to give you a whiplash with the semiconductor stocks. They're getting a pop today. Their index up over 4% right now. Information technology, best performing industry group in the S&P 500. That's where the semis live. Western Digital, best performing individual stock in the S&P 500. The worst performer belongs to Danaher, down close to 14%. This is the life sciences firm. Here's a quiz. What did Danaher used to make before they spun it out?
Meters, water something?
Craftsman tools for Sears.
Oh.
Yeah, remember that? Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, Julian Emanuel at Evercore ISI, he sees a positive environment for stocks.
Because earnings are good, and oh, by the way, you look at this year, value is outperforming growth. The stock market is very strong, and the economy is solid.
Don't forget oil. Brent crude up 2.6%, 91.60 a barrel. And that's impacting yields with concerns about inflationary pressures. A 2-year of 4 basis points, 424. 10s of 3 basis points, 4.62%. Fun fact: initial public offerings in the U.S. of biotech and pharmaceutical companies this year, they produced a weighted average return of 55%. So you compare that to the weighted average for the broader U.S. IPO market, a 4.4% weighted average loss there. And we check the markets for you all day long, right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and Scarlett.
Thank you very much, John Tucker. So Tuesday morning, we're looking at some green on the screen right now. So let's check in with Avalon Purnell, who is here to give us some stocks on the move. And Avalon, what's first on your list?
Facts, that's ticker EFX. It's currently falling about 7.2%, though earlier it dropped as much as 14%. And that's after the Consumer Credit Reporting Agency lowered the top end of its full year profit guidance. It did also raise the bottom end, but the midpoint for the guidance is below Wall Street's expectations. RBC also writing that the second quarter results were mixed when investors were expecting a beat going into the print, though they do also write that given the sell-off, Equifax is trading at a very inexpensive valuation.
All right, what do you got? What's next?
Danaher, that's ticker DHR, currently dropping 14%, most intraday since 1987. And that's after life sciences firm forecast core revenue growth for the third quarter that did fall short of expectations. RBC highlighting that the guidance is mixed and not consistent with a broader re-acceleration narrative. Still, he also sees that today's weakness as a potential buying opportunity. Worth noting that these results do make Danaher the worst performer in the S&P 500 this morning, and also they're driving other life sciences names further down as well.
All right, and as John Tucker reminded us, it was the owner of the Craftsman tools.
Yeah, they spun it out to Stanley Black & Decker.
Which then went private, right? Something like that, I think. Can't remember. Okay, next up on your list, Avalon.
Next up, a little bit of green. We have 3M, that's ticker MMM, currently up about 8.8%, most intraday since 2024. And that's after the industrial conglomerate posted a solid second quarter beat and also raised full year guidance. The outlook also suggesting that the broader turnaround continues to gather a pace despite those broader economic volatility issues. And part of that is because 3M is more insulated than some of its peers from the war in Iran, though higher oil prices still impact it. Citi highlighting that investors should view the results and guidance very positively, despite somewhat elevated expectations going into the print.
I have to ask it. So I ask everybody else.
Do
What
it.
does 3M stand for?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing.
Interesting.
There you go.
Not what I would have guessed.
Don't worry, you just work people before you.
Paul and I are full of these useless factoids.
Useless trivia.
1970s, 1980s era business facts. All right, thank you so much, Avalon Purnell. Avalon is our Bloomberg News equities reporter, and for more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to our Stock Movers Reports, where we offer 5-minute audio reports on the biggest winners and losers in the stock market, and sometimes fun facts as well. Subscribe to Stock Movers on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen. All right, let's get some facts out of what is happening in the Middle East. And for that, we bring in Tyler Kendall. She's our Bloomberg News Washington correspondent. Tyler, what is the latest here with the Iran war? Because the U.S. has struck more Iranian targets and the Houthis are threatening a blockade. It just feels like things are getting more worse than we had anticipated, certainly as
Getting
there's
worse,
still
not
officially
worse.
kind of not full
Getting worse.
return to war, but some kind of ceasefire still in place.
We're definitely getting conflicting signals today, Scarlett. We've heard from mediators that they are actively working to prevent further escalation. In fact, Bloomberg News confirmed that Iran.
So it's basically this. There's news talking about potential negotiations, and then Trump and Iran are firing missiles. And Trump is moving more equipment into the region. So oil is still ticking up here. So we have 84.72. I said that it might bounce off of the 85 mark. It bounced off at 85.03, and it's creeping back up a little bit. Maybe retest it. Gush is sort of drifting upward. You know what is interesting with Gush is there's a harmonic dissipation that's taking place. And that harmonic dissipation is also happening with drip. So you don't know for sure if it's going to pop or not. If oil pops above 85, which is possible today, we may see a big candle up on Gush. If it drops down a lot, then we'll see a big candle on DRIP. Semiconductor industry is somewhat stable, so that short ETF, it's not time to go into it yet. I'm watching it very closely here. The S&P 500 is at 7,492, and natural gas is at 2.861. I have a feeling that it's going to drop to 2.8 or 2.790.
Hearing from the Department of Defense here, just about the conduct of the war, maybe some strategies, maybe some potential solutions. Have you heard anything from that department?
Right, 2:30 p.m. Eastern is when Secretary Hegseth is going to face these questions from lawmakers. This particular hearing is around the Pentagon's budget request for fiscal year 2027, as it's faced some headwinds and an uphill battle in Congress, as Democratic lawmakers have moved to try to impose some sort of curbs when it comes to how President Trump is conducting this war and tie it to the appropriations process. But you're right to point out we haven't heard that much from the Pentagon since we've seen this resumption of kinetic action. CENTCOM has been giving us updates yesterday confirming that so far they have redirected at least 9 vessels, and that the attacks now, the 10th day of consecutive attacks by the U.S. have been focused solely on degrading Iran's capability to disrupt traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait really has been the focus of the administration's, targets when it comes to this latest round of action, but no doubt that will be something to watch later today on Capitol Hill.
And we do have some headlines from Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. He says that he spoke to President Trump today, and the U.S. and Canada are agreeing to intensify trade talks. Just, Tyler, take a step back here and just kind of give us the context for these headlines here, because the President yesterday kind of abruptly announced new tariffs on Canadian products.
Right, up to 50% for a range of products, including wine, hockey equipment, and milk. This, if implemented, would be the starkest trade move that President Trump has made against Canada of this second term. There's a few different points of context that we should have here. One is that President Trump's Section 122 tariffs, that stopgap tariff measure that the administration put into place to fill the gap once the Supreme Court had struck down his broad-based levies, those expire on Friday. So expect the administration to start rolling out other tariffs on other countries. Canada is interesting in and of the fact that we have seen relatively tense relations recently. Just last week, President Trump had threatened to impose tariffs over the wildfire smoke that was coming down from Canada. And earlier this month, we know that the U.S. chose not to renew with the USMCA, setting up potentially years of contentious negotiations. This is a very big escalation, but our own analysts at Bloomberg Economics have said that they don't expect it to be fully implemented. It very likely will either be delayed or canceled altogether, depending on how negotiations go. And to your point, Scarlett, we've heard from the Canadian Prime Minister earlier saying that they're ready to engage intensively with the U.S. on these issues, which would seem to indicate that this helped to jumpstart the dialogue going forward.
All right, good stuff. Tyler, thank you so much. Tyler Kindler is our Bloomberg News Washington correspondent on the latest out of Washington. And that kind of cues us up for the next conversation, which is with David Welsh. He is our Bloomberg Detroit bureau chief, and we'll talk about General Motors' earnings. But David, as Tyler was talking, I was checking out Canada's exports to the U.S., and energy is number 1 on the list. 160 billion Canadian dollars worth of exports to the U.S. in 2025. Number 2 is motor vehicles and parts at 74 billion Canadian dollars. What's the thinking in Detroit when the president threatens tariffs on Canadian products?
Generally speaking, in Detroit, the car companies worry about this because they've got long-standing manufacturing there. There are a lot of big Canadian parts suppliers too. Magnet is big. Martin Ray is another one that's a good-sized company. They send a lot of parts over the border. Very quietly, Toyota makes a lot of vehicles in Ontario, and Ford and General Motors still have production over there, so does Stellantis. But the car companies don't like anything that really is going to upset their supply chains any more than it already has. Mexico's already been a big deal for them, and certain parts of Asia as well. So they'd rather see the status quo remain in place and hope it does here. In fact, the car companies generally want to see USMCA remain as similar to what it's been since Trump set it up, 5-6 years ago to begin with. But that's not going to be the case, but they have been fighting to sort of claw back some exemptions to that and reduce their costs. That's why General Motors, one of the reasons General Motors had better earnings today is they've managed to lobby their way into at least a little bit of a reprieve on these tariffs.
And looking at the GM results here, this is, right back to their playbook, which is, they boost their 2026 outlook due to premium pricing on big trucks. Boy, that is America auto industry today. Premium pricing, big trucks, SUVs. That seems to be working for certainly Ford here. GM.
Well, it's working for all of them, really. Couple of things. They're charging a lot of money for their big vehicles. Now, we did actually, I will say this, we did see some discounting on pickup trucks. As the competition is always tough in that segment, and you've got high fuel prices that I think is keeping some buyers on the fence for a while. So, there's a bit of that going on, but GM's average vehicle is selling for $52,000. And then, that's an expensive vehicle. So they're keeping price up. That's one of the things that's doing well. So we talked about tariff relief. They have lower warranty costs. That's helping them as well. The other thing, too, to keep an eye on, they've been boosting production. They had pretty lean inventories throughout the second quarter. So some of this is that they're just kind of putting more into the channel to their dealerships. And GM says it's sustainable and that they see similar momentum into 2027, or 26 and 27. But they've got to deliver on that. Otherwise, they're building inventory and they may have to pull back at some point.
Okay, so GM and Ford, they're all doubling down on these big premium trucks. What does the car maker strategy look like when it comes to hybrids, when it comes to EVs? Because my understanding is there was another charge related to reduced production of EVs.
That's right. And what that charge is, it's basically for stuff they've already announced, but they've had to pull back production on the batteries they make for the EVs, and they've had to pull back on production of the electric vehicles themselves. They're retooling a plant in suburban Detroit that they thought was going to make electric pickup trucks, but nobody buys electric pickup trucks. They don't buy GMs, they don't buy Fords, they don't buy Teslas, they don't buy Rivians. No one wants an electric pickup truck. So right now what you're seeing are these charges coming through the system. And GM has taken a total of $11 billion in charges there. They haven't canceled a single electric vehicle in that lineup. They still sell a dozen different EVs, and that's their strategy. They don't have any hybrids on the market now except for the E-Ray, which is a Corvette, very low volume. They say they're going to have a handful of them coming. Mary Barra told Bloomberg TV that. But not on the market yet. Ford only has a couple. Stellantis, very little presence there. Right now, that's a Hyundai and Toyota and to a degree Honda game. And they're good. All three of them are getting good sales gains in the U.S. market because they've got hybrid electric vehicles at a time when gas is selling for more than $4.
We're going to head down to Washington, D.C. David Welch, Detroit Bureau Chief, joining us there. Right now, let's head down to Washington, D.C. President Trump is meeting with the Lebanese president at the White House, and they're taking some questions. Let's take a listen to that.
So did you raise it you would raise it to President?
Well, the Abraham Accords have been, I think, a tremendous success. I think you're going to see a lot of countries joining pretty soon. As you know, we have our original group, and it's so successful for them. Economically successful. It's been nobody left, even during this time of conflict. So, I think Lebanon has a very important place.
What is your level of concern of a blockade of the Red Sea by the Houthi rebels, opening up another front?
We'll see what happens. So far, it hasn't happened, might happen. But we take care of things. If something like that happens, we take care of it. We've done that with the Houthis before, and we haven't heard from them in a while since we did what we did originally. That was about 45 days of very powerful action we took against the Houthis. And we've had no problem with the Houthis. They've had no problem with us for a long period of time, including during this conflict. I think that if there is something like that, we'll just have to take care of business.
The Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament rejected the agreement between Lebanon and Israel and said it's a sedition. It's going to cause civil war. He's the Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament and he speaks for Hezbollah. He's Hezbollah's big brother. What do you have to say about that?
Well, maybe I'll let you speak to that.
Actually, the framework doesn't require the endorsement of the Parliament. Okay, it's part of our constitution. It's a prerogative of the president, and we are committed to it. And I think the Speaker of the Parliament is really wants to see the end of this war. He's from the south, and he knows he did his best to rebuild the south, but unfortunately, the south being destroyed in front of his eyes. So he's actually supportive of what we are doing, but we need to be careful. His position as a speaker and as a leader of the Shia community, we have to understand how critical is his position. But I can tell you that Speaker Berry is a man of state. He's supportive of what we are doing, and he's supportive of ending the state of hostility, ending the war once for all.
I think what he sees, because I've heard that he's a good person, good man, and when he sees the progress made, I'm sure he's going to come on.
From Lebanon. I have two questions, please. When will the Israeli army fully withdraw from Lebanon? Is there a clear timeline for that? And last question, please. Last week you met with the Iraqi Prime Minister and discussed him or described him as handsome and saying he could become one of the best leaders in the Middle East. How would you describe him? The Iraqi Prime Minister. Yes, how do you describe it as an individual?
So I'd say he's handsome also, and I think he could become one of the most important leaders in the Middle East, actually, if we do this, because they've been trying to do this for decades, right? Decades and decades. So if I made that statement about somebody else, I would put him in the same category. They're in the process of doing that. They're in the process of redeploying to other sections. And again, they get along very well. That was a great agreement they signed with Lebanon. And they're redeployed.
The Lebanese army needs help, and the United States said that it's very important for the Lebanese army to take over the villages that Hezbollah withdraw from. Well, how are you going to help them? And how the
we're going to be speaking about that today.
Sure,
yeah.
that you'll be in the
We'll be speaking about that today with the president, and we have some very concrete plans already in store for that, with others going in and helping. But they're also becoming much more self-sufficient. And we will be speaking about that. That's one of the subjects we're going to be talking about.
My question is, Israel, the Lebanese army said today that Israeli forces opened fire in proximity to the Lebanese trying to deploy in one of these pilot zones. This is day 2 of the pilot zones. Are you prepared to take any steps, additional steps to put pressure on Israel to withdraw, which I believe President Aoun is planning to ask you?
Well, okay, I just heard about that before this conference just happened, and we'll be looking at that, yeah.
Mr. President, there are no signs that Iran is ready to stop fighting. So what is the plan? Is the plan to just keep bombing until they give up?
Well, you know something that I don't know?
Well, they continue to attack our allies and
You don't know what the dialogue is behind the scenes, that they want to meet desperately to try and end it because they're getting decimated. You don't get that when you listen to your fake station, but you don't know. You don't know anything.
So talks are
you know something that I don't know. You know something I don't know.
Well, tell us.
I will tell you, they want to desperately meet, and until they're ready to meet in a meaningful way, we have no interest in even.
Mr. President, are you planning on putting any pressure or consequences on China for what you announced about them meddling in the 2020 election?
Well, we talked to them about it. It took place a long time ago. I think China's maybe a little bit different today than it was then. But look, they do things and we do things to them. I'll be honest, we do things to them too. It's not a one-way street. But we'll be talking to them, yeah.
Something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but the Border Patrol reported 14 consecutive months, no releases at the southern border. This is something you talked a lot about on the campaign trail that you couldn't run on the job you did on the southern border. Do you feel similarly at this point in time with midterms, considering how well of a job you've done? What is the lesson you'd be learning about border control?
Well, thank you for that question. The fact is, and maybe it pertains a little bit with respect to you, borders and everything else. We had a border that was totally out of control. I probably won the election, at least partially on the border, would you say? And the border now, we literally in 14 months, I think it came out this morning, actually, it was just announced, and in 14 months we had nobody coming through, zero people. I understand millions came through, and we had zero people come in illegally into our country. And that's made by people that happen to be Democrats, largely Democrats, the people that do those stats. I'm sure they don't like saying it, but we really had virtually nobody coming in, and we actually see nobody, not even virtually. So it's amazing what's happened there, and very people talk about that anymore. You know, they don't like talking about that. They don't like talking about Venezuela, where we lost no people. I'll be going to Dover for something that I feel is it's a great honor for me to do it. These are people that want it, and they feel like I do, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. It's a very simple thing. They cannot have a nuclear weapon, and they won't have. They're not going to. They have no chance of having a nuclear weapon. And as far as Iran is concerned, I'll let Pete maybe say a couple of words, but we are doing very well. We are degrading them at levels that nobody thought was possible. They're being degraded really so seriously. They did slip something through in Jordan, and if we had other operators, would not happened, unfortunately. But because we have the best equipment in the world, we've stopped almost everything. But when you let other people do your job, with the United States, we let other people do the job, and sometimes it doesn't work out so well. But we're going to be going and paying our respects at Dover. Pete, would you like to say just how we're doing, generally speaking?
Well, it'll be an honor as well to join you at Dover to recognize these incredible Americans committed to the cause, just like you are. Something no president's been willing to do. For 47 years, they built up a conventional capability, like the North Koreans did. Remember, that's how North Korea made their way to a bomb. So much weaponry that no one was willing to stand up to them. President Trump was, and continues to this day. Iran's been given every opportunity to negotiate, to show that they're reasonable on the Strait of Hormuz. But if they're going to shoot at commercial shipping, then we're going to hit them, as the president said, 10 times harder, which every night we're degrading them further and further. And the president has all the options necessary. If they want to talk, they can talk. Otherwise, they can deal with the War Department. And
the blockade is up and fully, it's, nobody gets through. Nobody gets through the blockade. It's like a steel wall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, there was another attack on an ICE facility, this time in New York City. What in your view is prompting these attacks, and do you have a message for those who are attacking ICE?
You're talking about the fire that was set in front of the federal building? Well, this is what's happening with the people that they allowed to come into our country. They shouldn't have allowed them to come in. They shouldn't be here. They're radical lunatics, and I'm getting them out. We're getting them out at a pace. We've gotten rid of more than any other. I read stories. They try and give you phony stats. I was with Tom Homan this morning. He'll give you the statistics if you want, but we're getting bad people out of our country at levels never seen before. There's never been a time when more bad people, and you take a look just here in Washington, we got we took out almost 5,000 hardcore criminals, most of whom came in during the open border periods of the previous administration. An amazing statistic, and this is something that I hate to be talking about in front of the president of Lebanon, but he's got his problems and the different problems, but we don't have any problems in Washington, D.C. We've wiped out about 92% of the crime, and we're going to get very close to, I believe we're going to get close to 100% of the crime. And if you take a look at this city and compare this to what it was 15, 16 months ago, this was a dangerous city. I don't know I better not compare it to Lebanon because I don't exactly have your stats, but it might have been Lebanon was safer. This was a dangerous city under the previous administration, Biden, and now it's a very safe city. There was an article that came out 2 days ago that Washington, D.C. has made the greatest progress.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the digestive enzyme complex. This will help to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, reduce the load on your pancreas, and allow you to absorb your nutrients. This is really important to help with your digestion. It also has bromelain to help break up clots. So please go to my store and get the digestive enzyme complex. Use discount 5. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com.
It was 20%. That's 2% of the people create 91% of the crime. Think of that. 2% of the people, you can handle that easily. So Washington, D.C. is now one of the hottest cities in the country. We have the hottest country in the world. But Washington is now hot. And I do have to say one other thing. We just had the World Cup, as you know very well. And it was the most successful World Cup ever. We didn't even have a protest. We had no crime. With all those events, was like having many, many Super Bowls. Each one was like a Super Bowl. And with all of that, we didn't have crime. We didn't have bedlam. Everybody left here with a different opinion than what they read in the fake news. They love this country. I saw Scotland. I saw Norway. I saw all these countries. I mean, the level of love, and nobody wanted to leave. And I just want to congratulate everybody, the job that we did, and all of us, everybody in this room, because everybody in this room was involved. The Vice President was very much involved. It was amazing. I was with Johnny the other day. It was the job he did is great, but he said he never thought in a million years he could be so free of any difficulty. Think of it. We didn't even have a protest. Not only no crime. Now, there's a reason for all this, but part of it was that people just wanted to pull together. This country, for like a 4-week period, just pulled together. Really amazing. And I didn't want to say it before the final. I didn't want to say how well it was doing. I wanted to get the final up with, because you never know. It only takes a minute. But we just had the most successful World Cup in history. Did 5 times the business of any World Cup in history. And I can't wait to get them back, but I think we won't be able to get them for the next one.
Do you feel safe here, especially with this upcoming? Do you feel safe, especially considering the attempts on your life?
I feel safe. Why wouldn't I feel safe?
Are you still speaking with Hezbollah? You said in previous interviews that you're speaking with Hezbollah.
I would say that, but I would speak to Hezbollah. I speak to everybody. I'll speak to people that a lot of people think I shouldn't be speaking to, and things work out. I would say this: if the president wanted me to speak to Hezbollah, you know, he's lived with Hezbollah for a long time. And if the president wanted me to speak to Hezbollah, I would.
On Iran, if the Iranians do not make a deal ultimately, how long will it take for you to stamp out their threats to the Strait and enable full shipping?
So if we left right now, it would take around 20, 25 years to rebuild. Okay? And we're not finished at all. But if we left right now, it would take them a long time, years to rebuild. But we're not leaving right now. So we.
The Pentagon says nearly 100.
If we didn't do what I did we got to 2 things. The Iran nuclear deal done by Barack Hussein Obama, I terminated that. If I didn't terminate it, you wouldn't have Israel right now, because they would have had a nuclear weapon years ago. And if we didn't do the B-2 bombers, knocking out the nuclear sites a year ago, one of the first things we did early in the administration, they would have a nuclear weapon. And you wouldn't have Israel, and in my opinion, you wouldn't have various other countries in the Middle East. They'd all be gone. They would have been terminated, extinguished. But I believe that by doing what we did, by terminating Iran, was very evil people leading that country. You saw the number of protesters that they killed, 52,000 plus. I put a couple of them up today, young kids, they kill them. They kill them like they're candy. It's crazy what they do. They treat them so badly, they're just killing people just at random. Over 52,000 people, and nobody talks about it. But if I didn't do the attack on their nuclear sites, or if I didn't terminate the Obama agreement with Iran, which was an absolute hit on having them get, that was a road to a nuclear weapon. And our deal will be a wall. It already is. They can't have a nuclear weapon right now. It would take them years to produce it. And we will absolutely attack. The new site that they're talking about. I mean, how about these people? They're in this because of nuclear weapons that they're trying to possibly reconstitute a site. We'll hit that site. Any site where they're even thinking about nuclear, we'll be hitting it very, very powerfully. Now, nobody knows, except the Iranians, the damage that we've done to them. We have done damage that will take them 20, 25 years to recover from. So if we left tomorrow, we had a big success, but we're not leaving tomorrow.
There's a bill right now that's being considered that would allow illegal aliens who are working in farming to get legal status. Do you support that legislation?
I don't know about it. I'll take a look at it.
Last night, the Canada tariffs. What are those a response to the wildfires?
No, that's separate. We're looking at that separate.
And what is there anything
There's no response to the way they treated our farmers and our people. Canada's been very, very tough on us over the years. For many years, and no other president's done anything about it. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. Many friends that live in Canada, but their leadership from Trudeau to the current leadership, I mean, in all fairness to them, they need us to survive. Without us, there's no way they can survive. So, but they've been very, very tough over a period of the last 50 years, actually.
Do you still support Syria entering Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah?
You mean coming in and doing something with Hezbollah?
Yes.
Well, it's a concept, we get along very well with the president of Syria. He's done a very good job. I wouldn't be surprised if this gentleman's going to do a job just like that. He's done a very good job. He's pulled Syria together. He would like to come in and do something with Hezbollah. They've been fighting. He's been fighting Hezbollah for a long time. I think it'd be very effective. So something I think.
Increased tariffs on Canada yesterday. Can you say if you still expect to impose tariffs on the wildfire problem? And can you say when you might impose 301?
A lot of damage has been done. They're not managing their forests properly, and the wind has a tendency to blow right over New York City, right over. You saw Detroit, they had to close the whole place. Michigan was really affected. They had to close businesses for 4 days. It's very serious what they're doing, and they don't seem to be able to do anything about it. If they managed their forests, they wouldn't have the fires.
Do you believe that Iran is trying to impact the midterm elections by threatening the Strait of Hormuz?
They won't have any impact on me. I'm just going to do the right thing. I don't view it as, gee, we're having an election in a period of time. Everyone says, oh, I'm doing something before. Now, the election, I can't think about that having to do with this. I think people are very impressed. I mean, we took over Venezuela. We now have a great relationship with Venezuela. We went to war with Venezuela, and the war ended in one day. And we have now an incredible relationship with Venezuela. We're taking out millions of barrels of oil. They're making more money now than they ever made before, ever. And we're making a lot of money. We paid for the war many times over with Venezuela. We lost nobody. We lost nobody. We didn't lose one. That was a violent attack. As you know, we took out a man who was a very evil man. What he did was very evil, in many different ways. We took him out. But Venezuela, they said the same thing. When I did Venezuela, everyone said, because look at the drugs. Look at what they did, where they took all of their prisons. They opened up their prisons, and they have everybody in a prison come in through Biden's absolutely insane open borders policy. And we did that in one day. Think of it. And now We are working very closely with the administration, and you know very well, Venezuela is a very happy place. Had a tragic incident with the event that took place a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago. What a terrible thing that was. They had a movement, a shifting of earth that was unbelievable. They've never seen anything like it. A lot of people were killed. So it's all unrelated. But by the way, we were the first ones there to help. We were there to help Venezuela. It was an earthquake, I guess you'd call it. It was a pretty massive earthquake. And we were able to do a lot of good. But
please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotics either in the veggie cap version or in the powdered version. By taking a good probiotic, you're going to improve your gut biome. You're going to be able to lower inflammation, boost up that immune system at the gut level, improve your metabolism. Also, your skin health will improve, and brain function. Yes, brain function does improve with a good gut biome. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the veggie cap version of the probiotics or the powdered version of the probiotics. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Haley Bull, Scripps News. Thank you for the question. Do you believe that Iran has moved nuclear centrifuges into Pickaxe Mountain? And when you say we're not done yet, what is left to finish?
well, I think that they may have. We don't have it on record. All we do is read the fake news. You know, we see the news is so wrong so many times. So, you know, maybe this one they have right, but it's okay. It doesn't mean anything unless they have the material. You're talking about the centrifuges. It doesn't mean anything unless they have the material. They don't have. We follow the material. That's where the action is, and we'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon. And there's not a thing they can do about it. You know, normally I wouldn't say that. If I thought they could do something about it, I would never say that. But we'll be hitting that area pretty soon, and very heavily.
I interviewed you and you told me on FTD Lebanon that the peace will happen in Lebanon. And every word you said during the interview, it's happening today. Like from the first day in the administration, you were working hard for peace. I've been detained.
Lebanon, and I understood how horribly Lebanon has been treated as a country. They've been like a whipping post. What's happened with Iran and with Hezbollah, and Lebanon's been treated very incredibly badly. And maybe I'm a little prejudiced in favor of Lebanon because I have so many Lebanese friends. Well, no, but there's so many Lebanese friends, and so I understand Lebanon. Tom Barrack is Lebanese, the ambassador.
We're going to go to CNN's clip about 100 U.S. soldiers injured in the last 14 days per Pentagon. This was released 3 hours ago. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the omega-3. This will help to bring down inflammation and help you control your lipid profile. By doing that, you're helping your cardiovascular health, super important. And with a good cardiovascular health, you're getting better blood flow to your hippocampus to help with brain function. So it's dual purpose. And omega-3 helps to reduce overclotting of your red blood cells. So please go to my store and get the omega-3. Super important to slow down that aging process and help your cardiovascular system. Vitamin B complex, super important to take if you are 40 years of age or older. The first 4 B vitamins helps with the electron transport chain within the mitochondria to produce more ATP, so you'll have more energy. Your cellular metabolism will improve, and you'll be able to protect your neurons with vitamin B12. Super important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And resveratrol. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence, and helps your mitochondria. By soaking up free radicals, you'll have more energy produced from those healthier mitochondria. And resveratrol helps with the basal layer of your skin. This stacks really well with the C60 to help you produce healthier skin cells. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you save some money.
U.S. service members have suffered injuries, though mostly minor, in the last 14 days. That's despite President Trump insisting that Iran's military has been destroyed. New CNN reporting finds the Pentagon has been slow to disclose injuries. Officials cite security needs for those delays. A Trump administration official says a dignified transfer will take place for 4 fallen service members tomorrow. 2 have been identified. First Lieutenant Tyler Freehan and Private Isabella Gonzalez were killed by an attack in Jordan on Friday. A 3rd service member was killed in Iraq on Saturday, and remains have been recovered in the search for a 4th soldier missing in Jordan. Now, President Trump has warned that Iran will, quote, pay many times over every time it kills a U.S. service member. Let's get right to CNN's Betsy Klein, live at the White House with all the latest developments this morning. Betsy, what do you learn?
Well, John, this has been multiple days of escalation for this conflict and a particularly violent moment in this war. We have learned that the Pentagon has really been slow to report injuries, as you mentioned, but Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell announcing in a statement that nearly 100 U.S. service members have been injured since this conflict began to re-escalate and that ceasefire fell apart back on July 7th. Now, Parnell says that most of those injuries have been minor concussions. But of course, this comes after 3 U.S. service members were killed over the weekend, and we have learned that the U.S. has located remains of an unidentified person after 1 U.S. service member and another U.S. service member was reported missing in action. Now, U.S. Central Command has announced a 10th consecutive night of strikes against Iran. This time, they say, again aimed at degrading Iran's capability of attacking those ships in the Strait of Hormuz, that critical oil thoroughfare. Now, this comes as mediators between the U.S. and Iran are floating the possibility of a 10-day ceasefire, an effort really here to get diplomacy back on track. Now, this proposal would include lifting restrictions in the Strait of Hormuz, and that comes as the U.S. has imposed this naval blockade on ships traveling to and from Iranian ports. And Iran, as I mentioned, has been firing on commercial shipping vessels in recent days. Now, as we think about where the administration's head is at, the U.S. official telling CNN in a statement, quote, right now, President Trump is focused on making Iran pay for their violations of the Memorandum of Understanding and their continued acts of terrorism in the Strait of Hormuz. In addition, the president will make Iran pay for the recent deaths of U.S. soldiers. That official goes on to say that diplomatic talks are continuing here. But in terms of next steps, it is possible that the Trump administration chooses to pursue this diplomatic off-ramp here. It is also possible the president has threatened to target Iran's critical infrastructure. That it could include bridges, as well as Karg Island, a key oil hub that would almost certainly require boots on the ground. Now, President Trump is very angry. He's made that clear in a series of posts to social media that says Iran killing U.S. service members will have to pay, quote, many times over. He's set to meet with the president of Lebanon, a key ally in the region, later today, and tomorrow will pay his respects at Dover for that dignified transfer.
Congressman, the cost of this war has been profound, and in so many ways. We understand in just the first few days of the war, all of the THAAD missile defenses in the region were taken out except for maybe 1. And there's a lot more where that came from. So there's that. And then there is the human cost, which I find just so stunning for the American public at this point in this war to understand that 100 American troops have been wounded in just the past 2 weeks. This is in just the past 2 weeks. And we were perhaps only finding out about it because reporters have been pushing and trying to get to the truth. So what do you know the full extent of American injuries? And do you know the full extent of equipment losses? When I mentioned that,
we don't.
Yeah.
Look, we don't because the Pentagon has not been transparent about that. I get reports from people who they know a service member at a base in Jordan or Iraq or somewhere say, yeah, we heard there was an attack. There's 20 or 30 people wounded. Pentagon doesn't say anything about it. We dig into it as the New York Times has, and you then find out. But look, this is, again, no transparency. As you said, no press conference, no conversation about this. we have a dictator running this country. We have never had a situation where we've been at war and the president has treated it as his own war where he doesn't have to share information with the American people or with the Congress. I mean, this is a frightening situation. And yeah, they have not been telling us what's been happening in terms of lost equipment, in terms of the cost of the war, and certainly in terms of the service members who have been wounded.
Can I just say something that I think is, I guess it's painfully obvious, but I feel like I have to say it, Congressman? You're the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee. It would seem to me definitional that if anybody knew the extent of losses of things like the entire missile defense system for the United States bases and countries that we support in the region and American troops being injured, that your source wouldn't be somebody calling who has a friend who serves on a base, but you're telling me it is.
Yeah, well, and we're digging. My staff is constantly in contact with as many people as we can at the Pentagon. You know, they are just not being transparent. We have to sort of pull it out of them or find it in one place or another. So, look, I mean, the lack of transparency certainly is concerning, but the bigger concern, we're in a war that we have no idea how to get out of. And the costs are mounting. The service members' deaths are unbelievably tragic. They continue to be at risk. The financial costs, but also just the international economic costs. Now we've got the Houthis saying they're going to shut down the bomb.
There's a little bit of a misrepresentation that's taking place with CNN. They don't tell you that 100 troops injured in 14 days, how many of them went back into active duty after medical evaluation? Very important. Very important. Now, maybe they don't know. But for sure, the Pentagon should be more transparent. That's true. But the problem is that CNN, especially Aaron Burnett, is always a never Trumper. She tries to find something so negative, anything negative about Trump and accentuate it. It's as though she's the smartest one in the room.
Indops rate, which is only going to add these problems. We need to negotiate a settlement and end this conflict.
Why do you think the administration has waited 14 days to tell the American public?
Because they're trying to, Donald Trump does not want to stand in front of the American people and make the case for this war. He never thought he'd have to. I mean, look, it's one thing to say we're into this thing for 5 months now. The most egregious part of that, besides the launching of the war without a plan, is the fact that there was no effort to prepare the American people. And so Donald Trump, instead of actually doing the hard work of preparing the American people, talking about what the goal is here, has instead tried to convince everybody every week that the war is over. And it's part of why are you hiding the injuries? Because it's not something he wants to talk about. It's not unprecedented in American history in terms of this level of hiding these things, but it's disgusting. And by the way, Russia and China potentially are providing this targeting data, and we're not hearing anything about that. In fact, Cash Patel's going to Russia now in October.
I want to hear more about that. General, the Pentagon previously told CNN that reporting delays, they're necessary to protect troops across the Middle East, and even top lawmakers have said they're in the dark. Listen.
They have not been telling us what's been happening in terms of lost equipment, in terms of the cost of the war, and certainly in terms of the service members who have been wounded.
Is that standard protocol?
It is something where obviously there's a little bit of a delay to be able to properly notify families of any kind of injuries or deaths. So that part is actually normal. However, we need to step back a second, as the previous congressman said, that what are the objectives? What is it we're doing here? The president would like nothing more than to return to a pre-war condition and declare success and get out of here. The problem is we don't have that clarity, and it's very disturbing whenever the president in his own tweets says words like, hey, we're going to kill more of you if you kill any of ours. That is reminiscent of September 16th, 1941, where the Nazis said, we will kill 100 for every one German soldier killed. We don't fight for vengeance. We fight for honor and for the national security objectives. We don't even know what they are anymore, and that's very, very sad, very dangerous, and we are in a quagmire, as you said earlier.
Jeff, I want to bring you in because sources are telling CNN that mediators are pushing hard for a 10-day ceasefire. And frankly, we've heard the ceasefire discussions many times before and wondered whether they were going to last. Is it in effect? Is it totally gone? The U.S. is already downplaying, though, any real chance that it actually is going to have the president agree to this idea. What has changed from the last discussion point about ceasefires till now?
Well, what has changed is that both sides are attacking each other, and that's changed everything. That's, of course, why the ceasefire was thrown out and why the memorandum of understanding was thrown out. And the president is not suggesting, at least in his public comments, that he's ready to move back to that. He has said a couple times that Iran wants a deal, but that's kind of it's almost a verbal tick for the president. He constantly says that, even when there's no real evidence, or at least no detail about that coming from the other side. So right now, it's conflict, but even Iran has acknowledged that there was some outreach from potential mediators. We assume that's Pakistan and GETTR. Took me a second there, sorry.
Okay.
But they have an interest in seeing this end too. The region is really being affected by this right now. The whole world is being affected by this, and the president will be too, and will face additional political consequences this fall if this war continues.
General, Iran was able to successfully hit a U.S. airbase not just once, but twice within a 2-day span. Do you think that Iran's firepower is more intact than the Pentagon's willing to admit here?
Absolutely, yes. The president continues his propaganda that he has destroyed the Iranian military. That is far from the truth. They are able to hit, in all of the media, we see one crater, one target destroyed per missile. They are not bombarding the middle of nowhere. They have extremely good targeting data. They are able to hit their targets in the U.S. While, of course, we can defend many of the drones and missiles, it is virtually impossible to secure every area, and our soldiers and military members are paying the price. But we're not learning these lessons like the Ukrainians have so well.
Congressman, tomorrow, Secretary Pete Hegseth and Chief of Staff General Dan Kane, they're going to head to the Capitol. They're going to ask for at least $80 billion for this war. Several Republicans are not convinced yet. Do you expect pushback, though?
Oh, yeah, there'll be huge pushback. And again, the administration needs to make the case. The American people are willing to go to war. We've seen this through our history. If a case is made for why, and even if they can't go back in time and make the case for the initial strikes, now to discuss, look, hey guys, honestly, we have two options. We either leave the Strait of Hormuz to Iran, that's untenable, or we have to escalate. There's no good option here. But that is the case that has to be made. And I have heard too many, though, Laura, too many Republicans and even occasionally a Democrat out there saying, boy, this has been so successful. We've destroyed their Navy. We've destroyed their Air Force. Okay, they had F-14 Tomcats. Made me sad to blow those up, by the way. But the Air Force was no threat to us. The Navy clearly doesn't need to be the threat because drones and ballistic missiles are. We've been told over and over that their ballistic missiles threat was degraded by 89, 90%. Then we read in great publications like Jeff's that, in fact, that's not the case. They've only degraded about 20%. Tell the American people the truth. They're willing to make sacrifices if you tell them the truth, but this continued lying is going to catch up, is catching up, and that's why nobody believes anything that these people say.
I think the Pentagon needs to be more transparent, and Trump needs to be less chaotic. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the lignans. This will help to boost up your immune system and your endocrine system, bring down inflammation and soak up free radicals. Really powerful. But it's even better if you stack it with turmeric and ashwagandha. By stacking those three together, you're really supercharging the anti-aging protocol. Now, turmeric, you can take it separately or you can stack it, like I just mentioned. Turmeric will bring down inflammation and soak up those free radicals. Now, remember the key points of aging. Less energy, mitochondria becomes less robust, it ages, inflammation starts to go up, free radical concentrations start to go up. And when that happens and it accumulates, it's causing methylation of your genes and you slowly age. Some people age faster than others, but you can slow down that methylation process and you can help your organ systems by soaking up those free radicals, boosting up the health of your mitochondria and bringing down inflammation. And this is the reason why this stack works so well. So take the turmeric, take the ashwagandha root and the lignans together. Now, ashwagandha root, just to remind you, helps to control the cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. It does other things too, but this stack to help slow down the aging process is very powerful if you follow my advice. Now, you can take these separately and you'll get benefits from them, but there is a synergistic benefit by taking lignans, turmeric, and ashwagandha together. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Vitamin D3, dual purpose. It's going to help with denser bone. It helps your cardiovascular health. It helps with your immune system. It helps with gene expression. So please go to my store and get vitamin D3. I take 2 of these a day. Now, to help boost up that innate immune system, take the cleanse, max 35 or max 14. They're at different price points, different parts per million. Take a teaspoon a day, swish in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds and swallow it. What this will do is neutralize and improve your oral cavity and your oral pharynx, maintain a mucosal barrier, and help the health of your epithelial cells. By doing that, you're boosting up your innate immune system. And when your innate immune system is better, when you're bringing down inflammation, when you're soaking up free radicals, when you're boosting up those energy levels, you're actually slowing down the aging process. Now, this is something that you should be doing every day. I've been doing this for more than 6 years, every day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
370.7%, so across the board here, the VIX down solidly below 1860.
All right, let's just do a market cap. You can also follow the dashboard on YouTube or my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The S&P 500 is trading just below 7,500. VIX is at 1725. Euro is at 114. Japanese yen is at 163.01. So the yen is weakening. All right, so most likely what's happening is there's a carry trade where they're selling yen, buying dollars, and investing in the United States. Bitcoin is trading at 66,750, and oil is trading at 84.44. I said that it was going to try to test the 85 level and then come down. It came up and retested and fell down again. Now, natural gas is trading at 2.877. I think the trading range for natural gas is around 2.8 to about 3 because of the problems in the Middle East. But the natural trend down, if we want to just do fundamentals, excluding what's going on in the Middle East, fair value is probably at 2.6 because natural gas normally trades lower in the summer. But you do have higher temperatures. People are using the air conditioning more, so higher energy costs. Also, the data centers for artificial intelligence are using more energy. So there's a little bit of a buoying up. There's more buoyancy in the natural gas market, but I'm shorting natural gas. You know, great positions to put shorts in are like at 2.9, 2.875. Right now it's at 2.878. So I'm shorting natural gas. Gush has been drifting up because oil is drifting up. Gush is a ETF that is investing in, it's a leveraged ETF investing in energy companies. So it normally trades with a decent correlation with oil. Also a decent correlation with the S&P 500 at times, but that correlation can break down. So pay attention to that. But Gush has been moving up. I put in a couple positions in Gush and then closed them out for profit. DRIP is the inverse of Gush. shorting energy. That doesn't make sense today because of oil being in 84, 40, 85. So today is a decent day longing energy for oil. Now, I am paying attention with the semiconductor industry. Now, there's a trend for the S&P 500 to continue to go up, but there's been sell-offs that have been going on in South Korea. Now, last night, the Kospi index composite for South Korea ended up going up. So that's a good thing. So yesterday there was a rally, but the day before there was a sell-off. And many trading days there's been sell-offs for the Korean market. Now it's primarily tied to over leverage in tech. So there's a little bit of a relief going on, and the semiconductor industry is doing decently today. But I'm waiting for the news announcements that will be coming out by the tech companies. Are capital expenditures going up or down in terms of their spending for AI? And what about their revenues relative to revenues and profit, relative to analyst estimates? If it just barely makes the analyst estimate, I think that the market is priced to perfection, and these tech companies are going to sell off. And the same thing with the semiconductor industry. Also, if there's a little bit of a hiccup with CapEx spending, and it looks like there's a pullback on spending for artificial intelligence build out, it's going to sell off. So I've been watching SSG. It's a short ETF, the semiconductors. Today, it's not the time to short. I used the ETF yesterday to kind of test it out a little bit, made a little bit of money, but I'm just being very judicious, and it's trading at right now 12.67. If there is negative news in tech when the earnings come out this week, SSG should pop, and you can make some money by shorting the semiconductor industry. That's what I'm watching. I'm waiting. So right now, oil is drifting up. Natural gas is trading at 2.879, and I'm shorting it. All right, let's listen to Bloomberg.
The late Senator Lindsey Graham's sister planning to run in the election for the real job in South Carolina. We'll discuss with our political panel. First, Wall Street. Charlie Pellet has the latest on a nice-looking market so far today. Live from World Headquarters in New York. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Joe Matthew. Nice looking for the bulls. Certainly with the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all higher. You touched on oil. Going to give you the quotes. We got West Texas Intermediate crude right now above $85 a barrel. 85.16 on WTI. Up now by just about 2.3%. Barrel of Brent 91.08. Higher now by 2.1%. Oil higher. So are stocks. Wall Street staging a comeback as dip buyers emerge. Also, people getting back into those chip names. Right now, we have got the stocks. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Stock Index surging by 5%. Bottom line here, S&P back above 7,500. 75.07, up by about 0.9%. Just about the best level of the day right now. Dow Industrials up almost 400 points, up 0.8%. Tech World, NASDAQ up 1.4%. NASDAQ 100 index higher now by 1.9%. The Russell 2000 index up by 1.2%. That SOX quote bears repeating, up now by 5%. The VIX just above 17, a 10-year 4.62% with a 2-year 4.25%. Gold surging $69 the ounce to $4,077, higher by 1.7%. And again, West Texas Intermediate crude 85.16 a barrel, up now by 2.3%. General Motors shares pushing higher. GM up by 5.1% after raising its full-year profit forecast by another $500 million. CFO Paul Jacobson was interviewed this morning on Surveillance, a day after the Trump administration vowed to impose a fresh 50% tariff on some Canadian goods over what it said was unfair treatment of American alcohol, dairy, and cars. In that interview, he also talked about the broader trade backdrop.
If we could encourage the parties, we would love to be able to get the deals done with Canada and Mexico. Mexico seems to be a little bit ahead of Canada right now, but I think a good trading bloc that meets all of the country's needs is really important for us competitively.
GM CFO Paul Jacobson, again, GM up 5.1%, rival Ford higher now by 2.7%, Stellantis, parent of Jeep and Chrysler, up by 0.9%. Again, recapping, crude pushing higher, stocks rally, S&P right now up by 0.9%, WTI up 2.3%, 85.16 a barrel. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcast. I'm Charlie Pellet. Joe Matthew, that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, my friend. Good to see you, Charlie. He'll be back in about 15 minutes with more on the markets, a seminal part of our program every day. And welcome to this one, the Tuesday edition here on Bloomberg Radio. Streaming live, always on YouTube. You know what Charlie Pellet looks like. He's not just that voice on the New York subway. He's a real man. And he'll be following stocks throughout the day. As I guess we bounce back, huh? UBS, we're talking about it this morning. First thing I read in Bloomberg Daybreak on my Bloomberg app. That is actually, for real, how I start my day every day. If you want to read in and know what's going on, that's what it's there for. DAYB Go. UBS's trading desk says the sector may be finding a floor. The big momentum stock unwind. Yeah, we're looking at you, Micron. Hedge funds, they say, have cut their long positions in momentum and semi stocks by about 5% of gross market value. That is one of the biggest pullbacks on record, according to the prime brokerage data at UBS. It's left net positioning in semiconductor and software stocks back where we were in April. And boy, didn't things feel good then? So do you jump in and buy? Micron's up almost $100 right now. Because that's kind of become the poster child for the momentum movement here, right? When you look around, though, not only are the indexes doing well, you've got a NASDAQ up almost 1.5%. It's flying in the face of higher oil prices. And this is where the storyline gets more complicated. The president was just talking to reporters in the Oval Office. You got 2.5% bump in Brent at above $91 now, almost 2.5% for WTI, $85. And yeah, gas is higher too, $4.02 on average, according to AAA. When you look at the energy stocks, though, my God, I mean, even the integrated oils are moving higher here. Refiners keep bumping new all-time highs on a daily basis because that part of the story is probably not going to change. Remember, Ben Hodges was on the late edition of Balance of Power yesterday. Did you see the 5 o'clock show? Retired general, Army general, who knows what he's talking about here. He's been a very reliable voice, considering his dalliances in diplomacy as well. And the general told us he expects this conflict in Iran, war, whatever you call it, to still be underway when voters go to the polls in November. That'd be a pretty big deal. Where do you think oil prices will be then? Goldman Sachs had a note out this morning. Brent could rally to more than $120 a barrel by the fourth quarter if disruptions in the Strait persist. And of course, we're adding the potential for disruptions in the Red Sea as the Houthis get busy once again. Is everybody going with Houthi now? I keep hearing Houthi. Are Houthi and the Blowfish playing in Yemen? It's the Houthi rebels. There's an H in there. But I digress. Yeah, the president says the Houthis, right? Is that why they're all doing it? I mentioned he spoke with reporters. So if you're following the beat on this, we're 10 straight nights of bombing. That's the most we've seen since the initial phase, the initial 2-week campaign of strikes. And if you read the tip sheets this morning, the president's got some pretty big decisions to make here. You've either got this 10-day ceasefire that the mediators were hawking yesterday, or, well, the hawks are going to keep hawking and we're going to be in a full-on war. Washington Post says Iran's government is likely not to be swayed with more bombing, unlikely to feel significant impact or soften its negotiating position. This is a new intelligence assessment described by current and former U.S. officials. Analysts at American spy agencies also concluding Tehran and Washington are for now stuck in indefinite limbo between peace and war. Kind of like what Ben Hodges said. And the market seems to be living with this pretty well at the moment. President says, though we're still knocking them and we have more strikes ahead, he even referred to Pickaxe Mountain, and we'll talk about that with Tyler in a moment. Here's the president from the Oval Office.
We are doing very well. We are degrading them at levels that nobody thought was possible. It's being degraded really so seriously.
All right, we already listened to that, so let's watch some other news here. All right, this is, let's see, Morning Joe. Let's listen to Morning Joe. Trump tried to bribe Iran with billions of dollars, according to Morning Joe. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. This will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals, and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. This is a great way to detoxify your body, and when you detoxify your body, you are helping your immune system and your endocrine system and your other organ systems. This zeolite you can take daily. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water. Do that every day. Now, if you want a heavier detox that you only do once or twice a year, what I recommend doing is taking 5 to 10 small drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, do that daily until the bottle is done, and then you do that once or twice a year. But I recommend doing the maintenance, daily maintenance. Also, what you should do is look around your home, get rid of cleaning supplies that you don't need, or paints, or pesticides. If you need them, put them in a double layer container. And that way it doesn't degas, because many of these cleaning solutions or different chemicals around your house, they slowly degas. You may not smell them, but you're exposed to them daily and you're breathing them in. Another thing is just drink filtered water and stay away from processed foods. If you reduce your intake of toxins, you're going to be able to help speed up the detoxification process. So please go to my store and get the zeolite. Now, gladiator barley and heirloom barley are also great ways to detoxify your body. With heirloom barley, you're also going to be able to break down that inflammation and soak up those free radicals. So you're going to slow down the aging process. You're going to recover quicker after workout. You're going to help the health of your joints and your brain and help with your immune system and endocrine system. Now with gladiator barley, you get all of those benefits plus one extra. And that is when you do resistance training, it will help to build muscle. So if you're interested in detoxifying your body, get the barley. If you're interested in bringing down inflammation and free radicals, get the barley. If you're interested in building muscle, get the gladiator barley. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Now, of course, you're hearing some talk about an upcoming midterm election, not even a presidential election, where we're supposed to back down, cave to Iran, give them an MOU where they get $500 billion and become the most powerful country in the entire region. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. We'll see which direction it goes. We tried to bribe them. Make no mistake of it. The Trump administration tried to bribe Iran with $500 trillion after worrying about after worrying about $1 billion or $2 of cash on pallets. The Trump administration tried to bribe Iran to the tune of $500 billion. $500 billion. That was more than Kaiser Wilhelm II had to pay for Germany after World War I. Would have been catastrophic, not only for our U.S. interests, but our allies' interests in that region, if we had gone ahead and bribed Iran. And they'd actually been smart enough to take the bribe. Thank God they weren't. To talk about this and much more, let's bring in the co-host of our 8 a.m. hour, staff writer of The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, also co-host of The Rest is Politics, the BBC's Kathy Kay, MSL National Affairs Analyst John Heilman, he's partner and chief political columnist at Puck, and also the host of Politics Nation on MS Now, Reverend Al Sharpton. He is the president of the National Action Network. And, you know, Jonathan Weir, far be it from me to be the guy that's talking about wanting to be in forever wars. I most certainly do not. In fact, we were very clear. I was very clear that I thought going into Iran was a mistake. But just as that was a terrible mistake, we can't make another terrible mistake on how we get out of Iran. And if we get out of Iran, playing right into Iran's hands, as some people are suggesting in the Republican Party, that, oh, we have to worry about a midterm election. So we're going to give you everything you want. We're going to let you keep your nukes. We're going to let you keep your ballistic missiles and actually build even more without any limitations. We're going to pay you $500 billion to become the most powerful country in that entire region and to terrorize our friends day and night, to terrorize the United States. We're going to do all of that because we have a 2-year election coming up in a couple months. Again, I understand the political concerns domestically, but internationally, it would be a nightmare to cave to a terror state for political reasons.
Yeah, the president is in a bind of his own making, and it is a proud tradition for the hardliners in Tehran to humiliate American commanders-in-chief, and we're seeing that yet again. This was a war that President Trump thought could be over in whether it's days or a handful of weeks at most, and now it has dragged along, and we've seen the real economic impact of it. He is someone who has been casting about desperately for months now to get out of this, including signing that MOU of a couple months back that even at the time, a lot of Republicans were very skeptical of, and many observers, including us, skeptical that it would hold. It has not. And now Iran is emboldened, and they have shown the ability to flex their muscles to open and close the Strait of Hormuz, more attacks on ships going through. We learn more about American casualties and the American fatalities, soldiers killed in bases in Jordan, elsewhere in the region. They've been able to really inflict might, and President Trump has blustered about this. Now, 10 straight days, we've hit Iran in some way, but there's some early intel analysis that suggests not really making much of a difference. So therefore, he is in a bind, John Heilman, as to the way forward. You know, he's desperate to not call a war. He doesn't want this to be officially hostilities back on. Yet he's also, as Joe just said, in a really impossible situation, because the only way to stop the fighting is to more or less cave to the current position, the status quo, which includes Iran being empowered and being in control of the Strait of Hormuz, which is unacceptable to the other countries in the region. They've made that clear to Washington, but also would have real detrimental impact, including gas prices rising ahead of the midterms.
I think I'm not sure what definition of war would apply under which we haven't been at war since February. You know, even in the period of time we had the ceasefire, there was never really the fire never really ceased, and we're now exchanging, volleys of artillery almost every night, Jonathan. It's like, I think for most Americans who look up and see there's a couple more Americans service deaths. We've seen that there have been revised estimates as to how many injuries there have been over the course of the war. I don't think there's anybody in America who, if you went and asked them, are we at war with Iran right now, wouldn't say the answer to that question is yes. So that's the real challenge for Donald Trump right now. Is the question is whether we're in a hot war, whether we're in a war that seems to be winding down or seems to be winding up. And right now, the war seems to be escalating, and that is bad politically for his party. I mean, I think the biggest problem here, and Rev, we could kick this around, but it's the war was a mistake from the very beginning. And the choices that the president now faces are choices that were eminently clear from the moment we entered. And in his face, as Jonathan says, great conundrum is how to figure out how to get out without doing long-term damage to the U.S. interests. But it's all self-inflicted.
He probably is a victim of his own misreading what was going on. Let's remember, he became involved in this when there were thousands and thousands of people in Iran marching against the regime. And he sort of thought he would come in and ride the wave of let's topple them. I can do it in 7 days. He apparently had no real thought out strategy of what happens if the crowds are not there, what happens if the people don't topple, and I'm not riding a wave, but I have to provide the basis of it. He didn't have a strategy. It wasn't thought out. It was, I'm going to ride the wave. I'm going to look better than Obama. And then all of a sudden, the crowds were not overtaking Iran. And then he had to come in and try to do a quick military move, kill people, including their supreme leader. And that didn't work. There was no long-term strategy. There was no what if, what might happen, then what, no plan A, B, or C. And he's caught out there hanging now. And no matter which way he goes, he's moving at deep risk. But more importantly, he's putting the United States in that, which we're paying at the gas prices to begin with. We don't know where this could lead the American public as we go into the midterm election.
Well, you know, Caddy, there's that phrase again, the midterm elections. If you...
During peak season, we get a lot more questions about what's available, what's not available, pricing, incentives. Having Fin in place helps with that.
Meet Fin, the highest performing agent for e-commerce support, resolving complex queries like your best human agent. Fin handles exchanges, order cancellations, shipping delays, and more, anytime, anywhere. And when your support needs ramp up, Fin does too, scaling with your business at.
If you're not interested in the political consequences directly in front of you, the midterm elections, then it seems to me the answer is pretty clear. There's not going to be a military solution, despite all of the saber rattling and the embarrassing tantrums the Secretary of Defense has made. And of course, that only makes Donald Trump look weaker every time Pete Hegseth opens his mouth and tries to act tough. It just makes Donald Trump and the entire administration look weaker. But there's not a military solution to this, but there may be an economic solution. As you remember, everybody remembers before this war began, you actually had Iran hobbled by just a collapsing economy. That's why the protests were out there. And so over time, if you're not staring at the gas pumps and if you're not staring at elections that are coming up in the next few months, if you take a long-term view of this, then it seems quite simple. Iran can be hobbled, but they can only be hobbled economically and brought to their knees economically. If the president's willing to do that, take a chance on actually not looking directly in front of him, then he has an opportunity to build a legacy, not by dropping bombs, but by squeezing Iran economically until they finally have to give up.
Yeah, there are probably both economic and diplomatic solutions to this, Joe, but they take two things that have been missing so far. One is patience and the other is expertise. And so far, we haven't seen either of those. Okay, a lot has been happening in the last few hours, so let's get everyone up to date on the overnight strikes. The US and Iran traded for the 10th consecutive night. The continued attacks come hours after President Trump responded to the deaths of US service members by warning on social media, quote, "Every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over." The Pentagon has now identified the two fallen soldiers in Jordan as 25-year-old First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan of Hawaii and 19-year-old Private Isabella Gonzalez of Texas, the youngest service member to be killed since the war began. Private Gonzalez finished high school just over a year ago and joined the Army after graduation. A former roommate told the New York Times, quote, "She was always dancing all the time, especially if I woke up and I was in a bad mood, she would start dancing." Lieutenant Feehan, described by friends to the Times as charismatic, competitive, and a leader, had graduated from Southern Utah University and was just weeks away from earning an MBA from the school. The Army said Lieutenant Feehan would receive the Bronze Star and the Combat Action Badge and that he would be posthumously promoted to captain. Meanwhile, nearly 100 American service members have suffered some level of injury since July the 7th, as the US and Iran ramped up those attacks. That's according to Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell, who added the vast majority of those injuries were minor concussions, and most members have returned to duty. This update from the Pentagon comes after the New York Times reported that in the week leading up to the Iranian attack in Jordan that killed the two US soldiers and left one missing, Iran carried out 3 other strikes against US forces in the country. Officials tell The Times those attacks injured dozens of US service members and damaged several helicopters. The paper adds the Pentagon had not disclosed the earlier strikes, nor the casualties and damage they inflicted. Parnell pushed back and denied any concealment, calling such claims fabrications. As for the fighting, well, Iran once again responded to the US strikes, targeting US bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan, and also attacked a tanker in the Strait of Hormuz, forcing its crew to abandon the ship. And as for how long this back and forth may continue, the Washington Post reports Iran's government is unlikely to feel significant impact or soften its negotiating position as a result of new rounds of US military strikes. That's according to a new intelligence assessment described by current and former US officials, who add that analysts at American spy agencies also have concluded Tehran and Washington are for now stuck in an indefinite limbo between peace and war.
Alrighty. Cash Jordan, he's going to be talking about how the gangs are taking over New York City. But before we go to Cash Jordan, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. This has all the minerals and the vitamins that you need as a foundation to slow down the aging process, and it has a lot of other supplements in here. It has 68 nutrients. This is a powder. It lasts for a month. You mix it with soft foods like hummus or yogurt. You can mix it with milk or with filtered water. Recently, because it's been hot out, I've been making it with iced coffee. So there's many ways to take this, but take it every day. It is a foundational part of the anti-aging protocol. And what this will do is slow down the aging process. How? It's going to soak up free radicals. It's going to bring down inflammation. It's going to help your immune system and your endocrine system. It's going to focus on brain function. It also helps with musculature and cardiovascular system. And a steady burn of energy throughout the whole day. No spiking. You'll be able to control your A1C levels, so you can control your blood glucose levels. It also helps with controlling your BMI, so weight control. And it's going to rev up your cellular metabolism. It's very powerful. You should be taking this, and I take it every day. And for individuals that have chronic migraines, you might find that your migraines will go down in severity and in frequency. I suffered from migraines for many years, for 50 years, literally 50 years. And when I started taking this, within 3 days, I noticed that the severity of the migraine was less and the frequency of the migraines throughout the month were much less. Now, I don't know if you're going to have the same, same help with your migraines with Boomer Boost, but I was surprised. I was very surprised. And I suffered from migraines for 50 years. So this stuff is pretty good. And the great way to use this, you can take it separately, but you can also stack it with the barley. You can stack it with the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley. That's a great way to supercharge the slowing down of the aging process, because it's going to help to further bring down inflammation, further soak up free radicals, and you're detoxifying your body. Now, Boomer Boost is also a great component in this core protocol that I have to slow down the aging process. And that protocol is really simple. Probiotic, take the Max 30 Fiber Cleanse, take the C60, take the turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans in the Boomer Boost. That's the core to help slow down the aging process, and then you can kind of fine tune it. Like add in omega-3 or add in resveratrol or olive leaf extract or clarity factor based on what you want to focus on. If you want to focus on your skin, also add in the collagen. So this is a very powerful supplement that I highly recommend that you taking. That if you take this, this could replace your multivitamin. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Boomer Boost. Now, I was talking about the C60. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and avocado oil. Now, C60 has to be an oil for proper absorption. Take it on an empty stomach, preferably in the morning, for best absorption. You'll notice that when you take this, that you're recovering quicker after a workout. And what this does is soaks up free radicals. It's very potent. It's like 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. And what this will do is soak up the free radicals and help boost up that mitochondria. And what do I keep on saying? Part of aging is dealing with the mitochondria. Your mitochondria starts to age and not produce the ATP that you need. This will help to improve the health of the mitochondria. It brings down the stress and the inflammation in the tissues and in the cell, and also soaks up the free radicals. And when you're doing that, you're boosting up your ATP levels, so you're going to have more energy. Now, this is going to improve your immune system and your endocrine system. By soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're going to be able to bring down the concentrations of oxidized LDL, so you're reducing plaque formation, so you can get better blood flow. When you get better blood flow, you're getting better blood flow to your brain and to your hippocampus, so your memory is going to improve. But not just better blood flow to help with brain function. You're going to be able to improve the health of the neuron, and the connections of the neurons will improve. So you're going to be thinking faster and have better memory. How it works is that it's going to bring down that inflammation at the neuron level, improve the health of the mitochondria, so you're going to have more ATP. Your neuron is going to be producing more neurotransmitters, and when you're producing more neuron transmitters, that neuroplasticity will improve, and you're going to have more connections. When you have more connections, you're going to be thinking faster. So take C60 to help also brain function. And C60 is great for the basal layer of your skin. It will help to improve that layer of the skin, the lower layer of the skin where your new skin cells are. And if you stack it with the resveratrol, that also is synergistic and works together to help with the basal layer of the skin. So literally, you're slowing down the aging process at the cellular level and tissue level, at the organ level, and you're improving your skin. So you're slowing down the aging process. And when you bring down that inflammation, when you bring down that stress in the cell, and you soak up those free radicals, you're reducing the methylation of your genes. So your epigenetics will be more youthful, a youthful expression versus an older expression. So you're targeting, if you follow my advice and you take the supplements, especially through stacking, what you're doing is you're boosting up your energy levels, you're bringing down that inflammation, you're soaking up those free radicals, and you're slowing down the methylation of your genes. And when you're slowing down that age-related methylation, you're going to have more vitality when you're older. And then when you're building more muscle and building denser bone, other systems will improve. So please go to my store and get the C60. It's very potent. I've been taking a teaspoon a day every day for over 10 years. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5, you get $5 off. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce if you get the higher ounce configuration. And again, use discount 5 and you save even more money. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video. All right, let's listen into how New York's getting taken over.
Do you ever think that your life as a parent feels like a juggling act? With Purdue Global, the juggling act just got easier. Because
most people aren't going to save any time at all, especially if the bus is delayed, if it doesn't show up, if they ran out of money and they have to run less buses, if the person doesn't come to work who's supposed to drive the bus. I mean, all of these things impact the service that you're going to get. And the crazy...
Governor Hochul and the mayor unveil a new fast bus action plan.
It includes rapid transit bus lanes, more cameras to ticket vehicles blocking those lanes, and better bus stops.
Wait a second, I thought buses in New York were supposed to be free, but that doesn't sound like the plan at all. Instead, the mayor has a new scheme to spend tens of millions renovating bus stations and installing traffic lights while cutting bus service to make it faster. But they won't be free buses, oh no, because these are going to be funded with an army of AI cameras to find drivers with the help of Big Brother. And while the improvements from all this are years away in the future, those taxation cameras are here right now.
Blink and you might miss them. On the windshields of hundreds of MTA buses, mounted cameras are now searching for vehicles blocking the bus lane. The cameras are powered by artificial intelligence, but driver George Hahn says the AI system isn't smart enough.
Mayor Mamdani, Governor Hochul, and MTA Chair Janet Lieber announcing a plan to improve bus service. They identified 50 corridors for improvements, including 5 rapid transit routes that will save 6 minutes.
Hahn says last month he got 3 violations on the same day for blocking bus lanes, but in each case, the videos captured by the bus cameras themselves showed he was legally parked.
If you make the bus 3 minutes faster and you got to walk 5 minutes more to the bus, your trip takes longer.
Alan Rosen is a former transit bus planner. He wants to see better management of the routes.
Change the routes to fill service gaps. They need to expand service rather than the cuts they're proposing in the redesign.
My commitment is to make buses fast and free. Today, we stand together on how we deliver the fast.
So oddly, all this new stuff is going to cost $800 million, but that's exactly what the city loses every year to people who steal from the bus by riding it for free, which reveals that these communists, they have the math for their free buses, which would be a disaster, but they're wasting so much money, they can't even deliver on that. And the reason for that is, you see, the communists, they love big promises, like free food and free buses and free apartments, but they love grand visual accomplishments even more, which is why they need to renovate bus stations for just shy of $1 billion, which will give them something shiny to point at, which proves in their minds that they've accomplished something. But this plan's got a bunch of problems. You see, it's going to eliminate the bus stations they decide not to renovate, and it's going to do this while punishing every car on the road with ticketing cameras, just so criminals and thugs can keep stealing from the city, revealing that the thought of using the money generated by our failing public transit networks to fix those failing public transit networks isn't on the table. Which means the mayor, in a way, kept his promise. If you're a criminal, you're going to get to ride the bus for free. You always have. But if you're the law-abiding, nope. But it gets even worse because this is happening 2 years after the city rolled out another set of AI cameras to tax you for driving on the road. Oh, yes. And now we've got the AI cameras on the buses to give you tickets if you're on the wrong part of the road you just paid to drive on. But that's not all, because while they're eliminating the bus stations they don't plan to renovate, some people's commutes are going to get longer because the only way the buses get faster is if they make less stops. Yet this time savings gimmick is meant to justify the spending of almost $1 billion. But that brings us to the real reason, this new bus plan for fast buses, which may be free later at some point when we don't know. This is not a solution. In fact, it's a handout to criminals at all levels, not just the criminals on the bus, but those who've been well-connected enough to get to renovate them and fix them up. None of this nonsense. And this showboating addresses the reasons people wanted buses to be free in the first place. First of all, they're dangerous and unreliable. Sometimes you wait forever just to get on a bus that never shows up, and when it does, who's on it? The wrong people who want to commit crime. But this is all an excuse to turn every single bus on the road into a money-generating cash register that roams the streets looking for someone to punch, which isn't going to speed up traffic. After all, the cameras we already have haven't done that. And the most ironic thing about all this is if you want to ride the bus today and you want to pay for it, it actually costs more than it did before the mayor got into office.
This is interesting. Ever since Mondani became the mayor, MTA cops have been hammering fare evaders.
Yep.
So this is what's been happening. I mean, I've been seeing this. MTA cops are looking for fare evaders, but I thought the buses were supposed to be for free.
Oh, I guess not. I guess they're
I
not.
don't think buses are going to be free anytime soon.
They got a
I think
ticket
the city
operation.
is trying to make as much money right now on fare evaders.
Right.
So it is what it is.
And they're doing it while blaming all of this on mayors that showed up before. Oh, it's not Mondani's fault they're ticketing people. It's not his fault he told the few police that haven't quit the force yet that they need to go over to the buses and start writing people tickets, which is the opposite of free. But the truth is, this proves the socialism we already have has already run out of everyone's money, so they need more of it fast, which explains why we've got this armada of cameras that are coming to even more buses. Oh yeah, these things are gonna roam the streets, dishing out fines. If you're on the street, these things are looking for you, which means this is communism at its finest. Redistribution from those who have something to those who are supposed to get everything for free. And our leaders aren't exactly hiding it. Watch.
By 2030, B41 bus riders will see these bus boarding islands along the length of Flatbush Avenue, the first of 5 rapid bus transit routes where buses are physically separated from cars and just one part of the bus action plan. It aims to improve speeds by 20%, improve the overall customer experience, increase bus lane enforcement, and expand access to transit.
In New York City, time is money. And we are going to give New Yorkers some of that time back. 6 minutes.
Unless those New Yorkers happen to be driving a car. You see, this belief that time is money and it's very important and we need to give it back to you during an affordability crisis so you can get to work or go about your day or do whatever, that all flies out the window if you want to take matters into your own hands with a car. You see, they don't want you to have personal transportation. They do not like that the communists want everybody riding the bus. Which is why if you're in a car, things have just gotten progressively worse for you over the years. They've deleted roads, they've made them smaller, they've put these ludicrous bike lanes all over the place, they've created traffic congestion, and now they're taxing everybody for being in a car, and now they want you to get on a bus, which could be dangerous, which may never even show up, and they're telling you you're going to get 6 minutes back. But where did they get this 6 minutes number? Is it even a real number? Is it something people will actually experience, or is this part of the scam? Well, this article that talks about the AI cameras has something to say about that, and it says the 6 minute promise falls apart the moment you look at how far most people ride the bus. They're saying that bus lanes will save you up to 6 minutes. That means if you travel the entire bus route, which is 8 miles, which nobody does, you save 6 minutes. The average trip is 2.3 miles, so most people aren't going to save any time at all, especially if the bus is delayed, if it doesn't show up, if they ran out of money and they have to run less buses, if the person doesn't come to work who's supposed to drive the bus. I mean, all of these things impact the service that you're going to get. And the crazy thing is, this savings only happens because they're eliminating the number of stops the bus actually makes. So if the bus stops less frequently, yeah, it'll get a few minutes back, but what about the people who took those stops?
And automated cameras that ticket drivers and bus lanes.
If you make the bus 3 minutes faster and you got to walk 5 minutes more to the bus, your trip takes longer.
Alan Rosen is a former transit bus planner. He wants to see better management of the routes.
Change the routes to fill service gaps. They need to expand service rather than the cuts they're proposing and the redesign.
Oh, cuts!
Other promises: install 300 new bus shelters by
new bus shelters, cuts. Service disruptions. None of this is about improving people's lives at all. If the bus stops less frequently and you are elderly or challenged in a mobility sense, You getting on the bus, that could take a lot longer. That could make your life much harder, much less affordable. But that's not what this is about at all. This is about statistics and accomplishments that the communists can point to and say, see, I got everyone else's money and I spent it on that thing right there.
Of the least when it comes to our policy conversations. Back along Northern Boulevard, Mary has time to talk. We checked the app and the bus was 10 minutes and 30 minutes away.
Wow.
I've been running this bus for over 3-4 years now, and it's always been an issue. They're very delayed.
Describe how long you usually wait.
Sometimes 15.
City Hall says the new initiative, with cooperation from the MTA and state, creates 50 priority corridors.
Right, so because the buses are poorly run, people are waiting half an hour in some cases for the next bus if they miss a bus. People are sitting at these stations all day, and we're supposed to think that the same people who are running the buses and are mismanaging them are going to get a boatload of other people's money, redo all the roads, tear everything up, create congestion nightmares on the roads while they build these bus corridors, and then things are going to magically improve. I mean, that is the dumbest thing you could possibly think. Because the same people that run the buses also run the subway. And they keep promising us with the subway every year, oh, we're going to get service, it's going to be faster, we're going to do signal improvements, we'll speed things up, we're going to modernize. That never happens. Every single promise that is made with public transit as the reason for that promise, it's all a scam. It's all a grift. It never works. And it's the commuters that pay the price. Increased enforcement, people stealing to get on these buses, stealing to get on the subway, committing crime while they're down there, making it dangerous for everybody. If they would just jail the fare evaders, they wouldn't have to have an army of police out in front of these buses, ticketing people, checking IDs, slowing everything down. That'll get you back 6 minutes. Put the criminals in jail. Then we don't have to do anything. And deep down, every single rider in this city knows exactly what's going to happen next.
New Yorkers, some of that time back. 6 minutes, to be precise.
There will be 50 bus priority corridors, more signals that allow buses to jump ahead of other traffic, and more automated camera and human enforcement to keep bus lanes clear. Riders waiting for a very slow B41 were hopeful the plan can deliver.
I hope so. I'm someone that's like, we'll have to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, because the same people are still going to drive the buses.
Turns out the government tracks a lot of data. It's scattered all over the place. Data on prices, jobs, benefits, healthcare, defense, immigration. Just the facts from USA Facts. Hosted by Steve Ballmer, takes all that government data and makes it make sense. Subscribe to the USA Facts YouTube page, full of informative and engaging videos that deliver the facts and data that impact your life.
All right, so here's the deal. National Concealed Carry Reciprocity is about to change everything. It means if you have a permit, it could be valid in all 50 states. But here's the catch.
You need to already have your permit before this kicks in if you want to be grandfathered in.
I didn't wait around. I got mine online. No classes and no range time.
Just put in my zip code, answered a few easy questions, and did the whole thing from home.
Took like 10 minutes. 2 weeks later, got my permit in the mail. It's good for 5 years, and when it's time to renew, you just send in a renewal form. That's it.
It honestly couldn't be easier right now, but once this goes live, the system's going to be slammed. So if you've been...
Are still going to drive the buses, are still going to run the buses, are still going to manage the routes. The city that runs the subways and the buses, they get $21 billion a year to do it, and it's already this bad. What are they going to do with a little extra money from some AI ticketing cameras? The amount that they're going to get for these new projects is inconsequential, but they want to redesign everything so that they can, again, point at it and say, look, I did that. That's me. I did that right there. I delivered. I made a promise. I kept it, even though nothing changed. All of it is being wasted, which shows that fraud, it's not just the people that are stealing from the bus and the subway. It's the people in the government that are lying about what they're actually going to accomplish. Well, they're not going to accomplish anything, but they're telling us This time, it's different. Here's why.
The plan sets clear timeframes to accomplish goals not just on speed, but in installing 300 bus shelters and universal bus stop seating by 2035. The MTA already plans to order 2,500 new buses.
You're not going to get off the bus. You're going to want to go to the next stop. It's going to be so great.
Officials say yes, there have been other plans, but this one is different.
Accountability. We're putting out a report today that has specific goals and.
So this is the chairman of the MTA, and he's been running this agency for several years, and now there's going to be accountability. An agency that gets $21 billion a year is now finally going to be accountable for where this money gets spent. Because we didn't have that in the past, which is how we got here. But going forward, everything's going to be just fine. I mean, are we really supposed to believe this? The system, its feature is that it wastes everyone's money. Its feature is that it is a perpetual excuse for why more of everyone's money needs to be taken away from them. That's how it's been for decades. There's no plan to change any of that. And every single year, the politicians and the bureaucrats, they get out there and they pump their chests about how they're delivering for the people, yet nothing changes. People are waiting at the bus. The subway's rotting and falling apart. And now the communists are going to come in and hold themselves accountable. Think about that for a second. They're going to take everyone's money, and they've got their own time frame for how they promise they're going to spend it, and they're going to hold themselves accountable for that. Do you believe that? Communist accountability, first time in world history here, folks.
How are we going to address the choke points on a daily basis that develop? That level of accountability and responsiveness is not always observed in government.
If the plan actually comes with resources and the targets to deliver on it, DOT has a historic budget to do bus improvements. Over $900 million of capital and expense funding over the next 5 years.
But there are many who wonder, what about the free buses?
Oh, yeah, the free buses. But you see, before we get to that, understand that everything you just heard is what they say about public transit in New York every single year. We've got a historic budget. It's even bigger than last year. We're going to accomplish so much more. A bright future of amazing world-class public transit is just around the corner for everybody who lives in New York, except it's not. Except everybody knows that's a lie. Except everybody knows the budget grows every single year and things down in the subway or on the bus just get worse. But that's why people want the buses to be free. You see, they've created a system that's so bad, people are begging for communism to fix it because they don't see any reason to pay for it. The only thing they don't understand is that once these buses are free, there's not going to be any bus because the money's going to run out for the free buses because they have to steal it from people. And once it's gone, there's not going to be any money to put a driver on that bus, to repair that bus, to buy the new bus when the old bus breaks down. And then, these buses are all electric. That's what we find out now. They're going to buy 2,500 electric buses. Good luck turning your AC on in the summer in New York if they got 2,500 electric buses draining the power grid.
And you wonder, what about the free buses? The mayor says it will come.
I've been very clear over the years that my commitment is to make buses fast and free. Today, we stand together on how we deliver the fast.
Of course, the drive.
Oh, so we're going to make...
I'm Arthur Lee, inventor and CEO of LifeHack, but most importantly, I'm a dad first.
Over 10 years ago, I watched my dad design and build the first LifeHack in our garage. Now, that device has saved thousands of lives.
The LifeHack saved my life in 1 to 2 seconds.
It's a device that saved my son's life.
The choking accident can happen anywhere. Order your LifeHack now.
Don't wait another...
Oh, so we're going to make them fast today. Everyone's going to pay more money for them to be fast today, and we'll get around to making them free. We're committed to that lofty expectation, that campaign promise, but in order to make them free, we got to make them fast. In order to make them fast, we need more of everyone else's money. Don't you see how convenient this is? Meanwhile, nobody wants to tackle the real reason bus service in New York is such a disaster. They've destroyed the roads in this city. They've created so much traffic congestion by taking roads that used to have 5 lanes and knocking them down to 2 lanes, plus a bus lane, plus a bike lane, plus parking, plus a green space. The traffic can't even get down the street. So if you're going to destroy the infrastructure that the bus drives on, don't be shocked when it slows down and when it stops working and when it becomes repulsive and useless and totally unpredictable. You know, if you've got skinny little roads, even a minor traffic jam miles away from where the bus stop is, that could slow down everyone's commute for the entire morning. It's like people redesigned everything because what their goal was a few years ago, if you remember, was to get the taxation cameras for the cars, this congestion pricing. They wanted that so bad. So what did they have to do? They needed statistics that proved that they needed AI cameras to tax every single car on the road. So they redesigned all the roads, they created massive traffic congestion, and they had their statistics. And they rolled out their cameras, and they put them in place, and it survived the Trump administration's threats to shut it all down. And there it is. And they said that those cameras were gonna fix public transit in New York. They said that once those cameras were up and every car on the road got taxed, we were gonna have amazing public transit. We were gonna have buses that were great, a subway that was great, and those were all the promises everybody in New York just heard related to public transit. But where are they? Why is no one out there bragging about the congestion pricing? You know why? Because it's delivering a whole bunch of money, and that money is going right out the window. They need more of it. But there's actually a way the city could fix its entire transportation problem overnight if it wanted to. Now, I'm against this idea of universal public transit for obvious reasons because it's a big scam, but I'm not against the idea of mass transit. In fact, over by the Intrepid Museum, where this massive homeless encampment is growing, you have the solution to New York City's transportation problem because this is where they keep all of the buses that go into the bus terminal and bring people across the country. Well, when they're not in use, they park them on the streets over here. So you have an army of buses that aren't being used for anything. And if people are waiting for the bus and the next bus is a half an hour away, well, you could drastically speed that up if you would let some of these buses also be driven in the bus lanes. Like, what if a coach bus or a Greyhound bus could be driven and operated on the public bus lanes and be used to pick people up? What if they could sell tickets and seats on their own buses? That would work. That would speed up transportation, and the buses already exist. But you see, the problem with that is then you would have private industry competing with the communists. And we all know who's going to win that battle. Everyone's going to love the private buses. No one's going to be getting on the city's electric buses if they even show up. This would be a massive disaster. It would fix the problem, but then the communists wouldn't have their grand accomplishment. They wouldn't be able to say that we delivered for New York and we need more of your money so we can keep delivering for New York. You see, we have common sense solutions that are at our fingertips in New York, but nobody wants them because it would deliver a win to the groups that are supposed to be the problem. Right now, you got somebody making a profit on mass transit, which is bad news for the communists, man. Profit? No way. If you're a landlord, if you're a grocery store, can't have any of that. What do you think about this? I'll see you in the next video.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen. Collagen will help with your skin, your nails, your hair. Also help with musculature, bone density, and joint health. Very important to take every day. This is a month's supply. Another great supplement that I have that will help to remodel the joint if it's due to a sports injury or arthritis and you're having pain and articulation is limited. Take the collagen, and what I want you to do is do these simple exercises. Open up the joint to the point of pain and go a little bit more, count to 30, then relax, and then do that again, do that 3 times, and do that every day. And what you're gonna be able to do is open up that joint more over time, and you're creating a micro signal to tell the body to remodel the joint. The earlier that you do this, the better. Now, take it with the collagen, and collagen will help to remodel the cartilage and the cushioning of the joint, block the pain gatekeeper, NAV 1.7, reduce the erosion of the joint by blocking MMP3 and MMP13 enzymes, and block the inflammation by blocking EP4. Take this every day and do that exercise that I just mentioned, and I highly recommend stacking it with the collagen because the collagen has the basic building blocks to help rebuild the joint, especially the cartilage. And collagen helps to recruit that to be able to remodel the joint. So please go to my store, get the collagen, stack it with the collagen, and do that exercise. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Houthis announced Red Sea blockage of Saudi shipping.
There's another new development that could be rattling global markets, especially oil markets, even more. Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen have now declared their own naval blockade, they say, against Saudi Arabia in the Bab el-Mandab Strait in the Red Sea. That's another critical international shipping channel and oil route. And also, there's new reporting just in today that the Houthis have begun broadcasting messages warning Saudi ships to stop traveling in the Red Sea. Joining me right now is retired Army Major General James Spider Marks. He's the head of geopolitical strategy for Academy Securities. It's good to see you, Spider. Let's talk about this. I mean, the Houthis now threatening the Bab el-Mandab Strait, declaring this blockade on Saudi ships from passing through. If this really does go into effect, if we now have a second major shipping channel that is threatened and thus, there will be disruption to it, what does that mean for the United States if this becomes a new front of this war?
Well, your business started with the idea, what if? What if we could do this faster, make it easier, make it look better, make the world better? What if we could ship more accurately? What if I could create a system that supports my business no matter what changes? What if this system could prepare any order type anytime, providing true omni-channel flexibility for my business to grow without compromising cost? What if I had a partner who could work with me to create these systems with a better user experience, making your what-ifs become reality?
I work in logistics. One e-bike, multiple operations. We deal with precious payload. Executive transport.
Well, it's been a front in the engagement with the Houthis in the past, as we realize. Also bear in mind the Saudis, over the course of about a decade, tried to eliminate the Houthis without success. Many would say it's difficult to try to bomb an organization back into the 14th century when they're already in the 14th century. So the Houthis have had an opportunity to really establish themselves over time. They've been quiet, as you know, over the past 4 or 5 months as a result of Epic Fury, and their ability to stay in touch with Tehran, which is their primary lifeline for support, has been minimized as well. What this tells you is that they've been hunkering down. They have capacity, and they are now going to reach up and turn up the heat, obviously. The concern truly is, do they have the capacity to do that? Can the Houthis close the Bab el-Mandeb? Well, they've done it in the past, but it's been opened again because of the efforts of the United States, not with a lot of help from other allied partners. But there's an incentive for the Saudis certainly to be involved because they, the Saudis, have created a pipeline infrastructure, as you know, from the Gulf over to the Red Sea. This is the oil that's being pumped out. So that attempt to create an alternative and some resiliency and redundancy is now going to be threatened pretty significantly. So the U.S. has a presence, the Saudis have a capability. What is going to be done that's going to detract from Epic Fury, if in case, if we are now on the front edge of a new engagement with Iran, will that alter that type of an attack profile? Those are the key issues that need to be addressed. So the Houthis can say a lot of things a priori. Let's see what really happens. And then I guarantee you the Saudis will step up and the U.S. will certainly get involved as well.
Nick, the Iran-backed Houthi group in Yemen, as you know, has declared its own maritime blockade on Saudi shipping. This is a big deal. What's the fallout from this?
Yeah, the Houthis are essentially a proxy of the Iranians. The Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz. The Houthis are threatening to close the equivalent on the Red Sea, known as Bab el-Mandab. About 6 or 7% of the world's oil and energy supplies come out through Bab el-Mandab along the coast of Yemen. This is mostly Saudi oil that's pumped all the way across the Arabian Peninsula from the Strait of Hormuz, where it's blocked, and it comes out through the Red Sea. So this is a significant escalation. The Houthis are militarily ready for this moment. However, they have not taken, or so far not acted upon, this decision to block the Saudis. If they do, then we can expect an escalation in response from the Saudis. That is almost unquestionable.
Bab al-Mandeb Strait, it accounts for around 15% of traffic, maritime traffic. I mean, this is just such a huge risk. Countries are starting to really draw down their reserves. How worried should we be about the Houthis at this point?
Well, they haven't or at least they haven't enforced this blockade. But if they do, it's significant because this was the exit that Saudi Arabia had used to avoid the Strait of Hormuz, which we know has been either locked down or kind of open or kind of closed for about 5 months. They were basically transporting via pipeline and convoy the oil to the Red Sea and trying to get it out that way. And they were doing that very successfully. Somewhere around the order of 4 million barrels a day had been exiting through this other choke point that now the Houthis want to close off. And so that is a significant threat. Not the kind of threat that the Strait of Hormuz is, but when you compile these things, it gets to be pretty significant. Now, oil prices, it is worth mentioning, although they are up about $20 from their low point from a few weeks ago when the Strait of Hormuz was mostly open, we're still also about $25 or $30 below the high point for the war. So the market right now is kind of saying, okay, we think that this could be a problem. Maybe there's some room to rise, but we're not quite at the level that we are or we were just a few weeks ago. The reason for that is that, as you mentioned, there are these inventories. China has almost 2 billion barrels of oil in its inventory. It continues to draw down that, and that's sapped demand for oil imports. So the big picture is this is a bigger problem today than we had yesterday, but still the market thinks that it can be managed, at least for the time being.
I want to bring in Dina Esfandiari, Middle East geoeconomics lead for Bloomberg Economics. Dina, really good to have you with us. I want to start off with something you wrote on X, and you say this: the Houthis have announced a blockade of Saudi, framing it as a domestic issue. The move is intended to give them wiggle room to escalate from targeting Saudi ships only to expanding to wider disruption in the Red Sea. And Dina, we also know that the Houthis have already started broadcasting messages to vessels, putting out warnings as well. I mean, this could be another huge risk on global oil supply. How are you analyzing some of the scenarios that could play out in the next couple of days?
Absolutely. This is really significant, and it's really significant now because so much of the oil that was going through the Strait of Hormuz has now been diverted towards the Red Sea. The Saudis in particular have done that, reaching maximum capacity in their east-west pipeline. So that means that all of that oil that was going through Hormuz is now going to the Red Sea. The Houthis have been very careful to give themselves space. So they've now come out and said that they will target all ships that go in and out, that dock in and out of Saudi ports. But of course, how much they implement that threat is what everybody's going to be watching, because they could target just Saudi ships to begin with. They could go much bigger. At the end of the day, what matters is that they've made this threat. And ultimately, because they've done this in the past before, that threat is credible, and that's enough to scare a lot of people off.
Yeah, look, the wider issue here is what we're seeing from the US side, and the Pentagon is saying nearly 100 US troops were injured in the last 2 weeks. We know that Hegseth is expected to face senators today and answer questions around the fact that they need more money for this war. From the Tehran perspective, they're reading into this, they're looking very closely at the US strategy right now. And I guess who's going to buckle first?
Oh, that's the
Perfect timing.
Well, that's the million-dollar question. The problem is that both sides right now appear to be locked in an escalatory spiral. The Iranians want to make sure that their red lines are clear, and the main red line really is their control over the Strait of Hormuz. The US, in turn, also wants to be sure that its red line is clear, and that red line is that Iran can't control the Strait of Hormuz. So the two are basically locked in this exchange. It's an incrementally increasing exchange in the sense that now it's targeting more infrastructure, both in Iran and in the rest of the region. That's likely to increase over the course of the next few days. Every time it gets worse, it becomes harder to find an off-ramp for both sides, and that's the critical issue.
So, look, the United States has reiterated for many months now, frankly, that they've been able to degrade a significant number of Iran's military capabilities as well as missile launches. Iran, in the meantime, targeting Gulf states, specifically over the past 10 days, and also releasing footage of their missile launches and drone launch sites. What capabilities do we know Iran still has at this point?
Well, it's really hard to say exactly, but what is sure is that yes, the US has degraded some of Iran's capabilities, but no, that hasn't been enough to prevent Iran from continuing its attacks. And not only has Iran been able to continue its attacks in the Strait, largely because that doesn't require much, frankly. It requires some drones, it requires some rubber boats with guns or explosive devices. So controlling the Strait from Tehran's perspective is really easy. The thing that's been more interesting to watch is Iran's ability to target US bases and US personnel in the wider region, including in Jordan. The US has moved some of its troops into Jordan away from the Gulf Arab states in order to move them away from Iran, and Iran has still been able to target them. That is something that's really quite worrying.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nano silver toothpaste. This has no fluoride. It will help to neutralize, help to whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, neutralize, because that's the structural nano silver, bring down inflammation and help the gum line. And with good oral hygiene, you're also improving your cardiovascular health. A lot of people don't know this. Poor oral hygiene can lead to problems with your vascular system and valves for your heart. So it's important to have good oral hygiene. This structural nano silver toothpaste neutralizes, so it's perfect for the winter season, but take it every day. Use it every day. Now, I also have structural nano silver gel. This is dual purpose. You can get it in a tube version or a quick dispenser version that you can put in your bag, but make sure you have some at work and have some at home. You never know when you need it. It helps to heal a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn quicker, about 1/3 of the time quicker. And you can use it as daily skincare. Just topically, just put it on your skin every day. And it's perfect for the allergy season and the cold season. Put it on your hands, lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours and helps to neutralize because it has the structural nano silver. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. That's the end of my broadcast. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Thank you for listening. Share the links and help support the work that I do by making sure you get the great products that I offer. All these videos were free, and if you've been paying attention to me, you'll probably make some money. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.